You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan Schwarting and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru açıyı kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen gol! Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Zuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Black Eagles podcast. Sorry for the delay in starting up, we had some technical difficulties and you might notice that our stream doesn't look like it usually does, but that's... Sorry, yeah, Sinan, what's up? It's fine, we're on, Yeah. So Sino was already stopping me there because he thought we were having more technical difficulties, but everything's fine. We are here to talk to you today about Turkey's Euro 2024 adventure, and joining us for this very special episode, we have a very special guest from you live from Rochester, New York, is Ahmet Bob Turgut, or as you may know him as well at Turkish Soccer on Twitter. Thank you for joining us, Ahmet abi. That's nice. I saw the weather. It looks great in New York City. We had an okay day here as well. Gathel, how was the weather in Scotland today? Was the missus at least able to enjoy it then? Fair enough. Sina, what about you? You're also in New York. How was the weather over there? I mean, obviously good, but have you been able to enjoy it? Alright, fair enough. Well, let's get started and talk about the Euros because we only have Ahmed Abi for about 30 minutes or so, and afterwards I think we'll, yeah? Huh. Oh, great. That's weird because the test I did... Oh. That might fix it. Alright. Now they should be able to hear you. I don't know why that was muted. That's weird.
Yeah, just can you hear me, guys? Just let us know in the comments if you can.
How about now, Mario? Can you hear us now?
Now they can hear
testing.
Everyone. So
testing.
Should be fine now. All right. So sorry about that. We had a wrong button pressed, but you should be able to hear the guys now. Look, we got all the small talk out of the way. Let's talk about Euro 2024 because we only have about 30 minutes. Let us know though.
It's Kaan, it's all because of me trying to get here
No.
and then mess up your broadcast. It's okay.
It's trust me, I messed this up. I messed this up more often than I care to admit. It's not the first time. Trust me. But it should be good going forward now. I think they can all hear you guys. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what we've heard. The latest is that things are going well.
Perfect. So we don't have a camera feed for Ahmet Abi, but you can hear his voice obviously. And go give him a follow on Twitter at Turkish Soccer if you don't already. Always great to see you tweeting about Turkish football, Ahmet Abi. And thank you for joining us for this episode. So let's start talking about Euro 2024. Turkey got to the quarterfinals. It's the best result Turkey have managed since 2008. Obviously, the previous two tournaments weren't the biggest success. Overall, Ahmet, how did you experience the Euros? What did you think about it? Did you think it was a success? What did you think about the team performance? Any players that stood out to you? And what did you think of the coach's performance in particular?
Actually, time out, Khan. Can I have a moment quickly? I want to, we did a little bit of this before we started recording,
Sure.
but I want to give Ahmet, Bob, perhaps a proper introduction, because I think a lot of folks who might not recognize him ought to. He's sort of a legend in the Turkish football journalism community, and this goes back to I'm going to say, Khan, when were we first chatting? Like the early
2005,
the
I think. Something
maybe
like that.
even like the early 2000s, perhaps, something like that.
Mid 2000s, something like that. Yeah.
And so there was a time when the internet was not maybe like in its infancy is a little bit dramatic, but
I think that's the correct way to say it.
yeah, and it was building up. We were just starting to get like these new lifestyles related around it and all. But for me, following Turkish football, it required me to always monitor UEFA.com, which was like, they gave you the fully official news. So like if Beşiktaş made a transfer, you could see that. For a time, you could watch European football on UEFA.com too. It was great. But besides that, to get real Turkish football news, you had to rely on this man right here, Ahmet. At least I did. If you didn't speak Turkish like I didn't, and that's an embarrassing sticking point. But nonetheless, for those of us who wanted to follow the sport and follow the league without, having access to Turkish newspapers, and frankly, like I don't even think a lot of Turkish newspapers were like online fully even, or at least not to the extent that they are now. So like to do it, to follow the league, to follow the sport in Turkey, you had to know Ahmet Bab Turgut. And so I just want to say it's an honor to have you on. Thank you for coming on. But anyway,
Thank you.
Take it away. Take it away. And so,
great words from you, but you made me flush my face here. I'm all in red right now, but I like your shirt, your Turkish national team shirt. You're the only one that wore the shirt today, and I tell you, coming back to Khan's questions, let me say this. I know Khan, Sinan talked a little bit about me. Like I said, I was red-faced, but it's not only thing. I think you guys, you're a different generation. I'm a senior citizen right now at the age 67, still doing this as a hobby. I don't make any money, but I was a journalist back in the days, in the 80s and 90s. My passion was soccer, football, and I played in 2 years with Altınordu B team, and I came to United States. I was a referee, New York State referee for a while. I worked for Hürriyet Turkish daily newspaper for about 15 years. But I always want to do, when the internet era came in, I saw that even the Turkish Football Federation website for years did not have any English news, any information like that. And I fought over for this many, many times. So back in 1987, that's when the internet come around. I started TurkishSoccer.com. I still own that, what do you call it?
The URL, yeah.
The domain.
The domain, yeah.
The handle.
Yeah.
And then with me, passed away I think last couple years, Erdinç Sivritepe, the guy that owned Turkish Soccer, Turkish-Soccer.net. This gentleman lived in Toronto, and statistically, he had all the leagues. If you go on to his website right now, it's still there. He was from Izmir like me, and he was a passionate guy that lived in Canada. I just want to remember him too. I think him and I were the beginners on social media. And then that we had only thing, it was the internet. We didn't have Twitter. MySpace wasn't even there at the time it started. So, yeah, kudos to Erdinç that we lost a couple years ago. He was a fine gentleman. And I want to thank Sinan and many people like Sinan wrote me a lot of letters. I have one guy who was a general in United States Army, who was born in United States, but he's a Turkish. He wrote me a letter, 2 pages. I never forget that. I save it in my collection items. It's stuff like that makes me proud, but I am not the guy that always upfront. You know, you see this on social media. Now the new generation journalists come out. They want to make their name on Twitter or social media when they give you wrong transfer news.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I'm not into that. I don't want to make a name for myself. I just want to be a low key. I've been low key all my life, and I'm at 7 years old. I'm going to be 68. So life is good to me. I have 2 bright boys, good family, enjoying the life. And as far as coming to your question now, Khan, I think it was a great tournament for Türkiye. I think after 2008, this was the best season, I could say, because this generation that we have in this team, it is the best generation I have seen last 20 years. Best players. Guy like Ferdi Kadıoğlu, Arda Güler, and Barış Alper Yılmaz in goal. Very mature. Mert Günok. We saw that when Mert Günok did not play against Portugal, and we saw that when Arda Güler did not play against Portugal, and we saw that when Matt Mulder did not play against Portugal. So there were some mistakes, but I think going into knockout, the 16 knockout stages, and then playing another fantastic match, even though we could talk a lot about the second half against the Netherlands. I think Montella, I like him as a coach, but I don't want him to get fired. But I think he doesn't do this job by himself. That is why I'm very critical about his game plan when it comes to from the sideline before the match. I like him as a coach, but I think what he did before the match against Portugal, saying that Arda Güler was tired, and then after the match, the captain of the team came out, he was injured. That doesn't make sense. So I think if Arda Güler would have played against Portugal, a tie would have got us 1 point. We would been in 1 point ahead of Portugal in the standings. Overall, great team. I hope this team is going to be a good team going into the World Cup, the qualification matches. Let's hope that Vincenzo Montella stays with the team. I'm not here to bash him, but when he does wrong, we're going to talk about what he does wrong. I think he did wrong in the last match against Netherlands. In the 40, when you saw the former Beşiktaş player, Weghorst, came into the match in the second half. And as a coach, you stand on that sideline and you don't make any changes. And they changed their second striker, and you need to put striker in there. If we had, even in the 70 minute, last 20 minutes, if we had Cenk Tosun or Semih Kılıçsoy as a striker, it would have been a different story. Why would you put him in the last 8 minutes of the match? That is my critic of Vincenzo Montella. I think he will learn from his mistakes after watching these tapes, what happened in the Portugal game before and after, and then this match, and he'll hopefully he'll correct his mistakes. It's a great team. I tell you, this was the youngest team. Those people that watch my or listen to my podcast at Turkish Soccer, also on Facebook, Turkish Football and Turkish Soccer page. I said this before the tournament started. Turkey was the dark horse of this tournament. They could go on and then at least to the semifinals. And we had a chance going into semifinals. Pretty good chance, especially when you score the first goal and winning 1-0 going into the first half. So it escaped out of our hands. But I think the future for Turkish football, Turkey national team, is bright, guys. I think I talked a little bit too much. I like to listen to your Sinan, Khan, and Kartal's opinion on this.
I agree with a lot of what you said, and I think, another aspect of where I think Montella was a little slow to react to the Netherlands in that last match was, I think bringing on a guy like Okay Yokuşlu was probably a good idea, right? Their physicality was ramping up, like bringing on Weghorst, as you said, like Dumfries was starting to kind of boss things on the wings. So I think, like putting in some more physicality, bringing in Okay Yokuşlu like a little earlier on, putting in a striker, obviously, that was a slightly maybe systemic issue, and I think there was a moment, in the first half against the Netherlands where it was like, wow, maybe this sort of like neo-Catenaccio, six midfielder formation of thing is kind of working.
It's a good comparison because I think that's kind of how he stepped into the tournament, right? Like with his 4-6-0, essentially, no striker. That's basically how he started off the tournament, and I kind of like. I think I even told this to you guys in the group. Like, I understand if he does it against Portugal. I don't understand why you do it against Georgia, and I don't really understand why you do it against the Czech Republic. I get why you do it against teams that are stronger than you, whether it's tactically or just quality-wise. I kind of understand it, but yeah. But it worked well in the first half for sure. But then,
and certainly to co-sign what Ahmet was saying, about the future of this specific national team, right? It looks good, right? I was gonna say orange and blue sky. That's like a Knicks reference, but no, right? Like we have like Arda Güler and Kenan Yıldız and Semih Kılıçsoy, and the core is even young enough.
Yasin Özcan. And then there's there's kids that weren't even there, like Yasin Özcan, like Emin Bayram.
Turkey and Austria was the youngest two teams in this tournament, and we beating Austria. And before that match, everyone thought that Austria was too good for Turkey, and I think I even thought of that. But I said if they play against Austria, they played against Georgia, we had no problem with it. But at the end, Austria was, that first minute, 57-second goal, that shook that Austria team big time. And look at the corner kicks done by Arda Güler. The guy, Ancelotti said one thing, the ball loves Arda Güler, and Arda Güler loves a ball, and I believe it. When he's on that field, that's why Arda Güler is not a striker. He's a midfielder. He's a motor and a midfielder who could see the field, the pitch, with his vision. That's why Barış Alper Yılmaz is not a striker. He's a winger. That is those two mistakes that made Vincenzo Montella. I think he's going to look at this. He's going to look at the tapes. He's going to realize that where he made the mistake in this tournament. And I like to hear Kartal think about what he thinks about this national team.
To be honest, I think we've done better than a lot of people were expecting. Sure. I personally thought we'd get to the round of 16 and then we'd probably get eliminated. Although I think I'm disappointed that we didn't go further, because when you look at the side of the draw we were in after the group stage, I think it was a favourable draw after we got past Austria, who were the surprise team of the tournament. A lot of people were expecting them to do well. I think against Georgia, in the first game, we played a very exciting game, although defensively we weren't so good and conceded too many chances. But offensively, I think we had a phenomenal game. I'd say we did deserve to win that one. I think against the Czech Republic, we did get a bit lucky, to be honest. Like at times, to be honest with you, I didn't watch all of that game. I was out with my wife. It was our anniversary the day before, so we were on a day trip, and I got in for the last 20 minutes or so. But from the stats and what I could see, at times it didn't really look like they were 10 men and we were 11.
Yeah.
But obviously we had the quality in the end. I mean, he brought in Cenk Tosun at the end, who scored a fantastic goal.
Yeah.
Although Cenk's not the Cenk Tosun he once was. He just showed it was a sheer moment of class from him, and we got the win. Austria, from the 20th minute to the 45th minute, we played really bended very well, looked dangerous on the break. Second half, defensively, we gave away more chances, but again, as you referred to earlier on, Ahmet, Arda Güler's set pieces are phenomenal. He's just, every time he crosses the ball, it's dangerous. And here in the UK, they're saying he's got a wand of a left foot. It's like a magic wand, his left foot. And it truly is. I mean, even in the Netherlands game that I'll get to in a wee bit, it wasn't even just his left foot, it was his right foot as well. But we're dangerous on set pieces, got 2-0 up, and they conceded. We conceded and it was 2-1, and then like Mary and Mert just played their hearts out, and obviously Mert had that phenomenal save at the end. So I think, well, maybe luck was on our side a wee bit against Austria. It was a great performance. We showed a lot of heart. A lot of our players played very well throughout this tournament. Like Fadi Cadolo was probably the left back of the tournament. Mary Deminal, when he played, and he was later on controversially banned for the gesture that we'll soon get to. Probably we'll talk about that soon. He had a great tournament. Barış Alper Yilmaz, despite him not being a striker, he's a right winger. The boy played his heart out. He kept running and running and running, and I think the coach obviously did misuse him, and we should have really had a striker there. I think throughout all these games, that one thing we missed was that focal point up front. I think we could all agree on that. Someone just to hold up the ball, bring his teammates in.
Yeah.
A target for a cross in the box, because we've got all these beautiful crosses coming in from the likes of Arda and stuff like that, but there's no one really to get on the end of them, apart from when it's like a set piece and you've got like maybe like a Mary or a Samet or an Abdul Karim up there to get it. But I was very disappointed because I think we actually played our best game against the Netherlands. In the first half against the Netherlands, apart from that first 10-15 minutes, we were by far the better team. They couldn't really come at all. They weren't very dangerous. They had that chance right at the start through the pie. But in that second half, I think Montella made that grave mistake of just telling us to sit back. And guys like us that, have been watching Turkish teams our whole life, it doesn't matter if it's in club football, if it's Beşiktaş or Fenerbahçe or Galatasaray even, or Türkiye as well. Like, it's just not in our DNA to sit back and defend. It's not in our DNA. And we started allowing the pressure. As Sinan said, Okay should have came on earlier before they scored to match their physicality with Bekhoff. And then Montella waited until we conceded the 2 goals to react. And it was 2 huge mistakes. The first one, the Voz was left.
Was it exactly the same against Austria as well? The only difference is we didn't concede twice against Austria.
Yeah, exactly. It was just a heroic performance by Mert and Mary Deminal as well. Like, we did our defensive shape and discipline did crumble in the second half against Austria as well. But for me, the most frustrating part of this tournament was after we went 2-1 down, he starts making changes. He brings on Kerem Aktürkoğlu. He brings on Cenk Tosun. Okay came on a bit before. Semih Kılıçsoy came on in the 88th minute.
I think he put Okay and Cenk on at the exact same time, actually.
Yeah. When he made those chances after 2-1, what happened? We started taking the game to them, and we were all over them. Yeah. We missed 3 or 4 great chances.
Hey, Cartel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you mentioned that Arda Güler had a wand of a left foot.
Yeah.
And
it's gonna make a Harry Potter remark, isn't he?
Damn it, Con! You stole my freaking thunder. I was gonna say, who's the real Harry Potter now? But poor Kerem Aktürkoğlu, right? Like, I think in his mind, this was probably his tournament to lead the Turkish national side, to sort of be a focal point offensively and in terms of creativity. And certainly Arda Güler, speaking of stealing one's thunder, right? I think. Anyway, Kartal, I'll hand it back to you. Sorry, I couldn't let that pass.
But if you're gonna talk about stealing thunder, I think the thunder that truly got stolen was Hakan Çalhanoğlu. No.
Oh yeah.
Arda did in these 5 games what Hakan hasn't been able to do in 10 years.
Yeah.
The problem, you guys, if you look at it, Hakan Çalhanoğlu probably will not play in that roster if we go to a 2026 tournament, which will happen in the United States.
Do you think so? I mean, how old is he? 29 now? I would imagine he.
Yeah. 30.
Especially when you play in midfield.
I mean, I hope so, because I'm not a big Hakan fan.
Here's my point, Con. I think that's why you want to make a plan, your game plan on Arda Güler. We saw that Arda Güler, the way that he distributes the ball in the midfield and sees the pitch, who's open. You've seen his crosses. He is genius when he plays with the ball, and his head and his feet reacts at the same time. That is the number one thing for a good football player. I think that's why Arda Güler at this age, even though he was not ready when he went to Real Madrid, we saw that as physically he built this past year, Arda Güler is much stronger. And I think next season you're going to see him playing more at Real Madrid.
Hopefully, yeah, for sure. I mean, he missed a lot due to injury at the start of the season. Maybe he would have played a lot more this season regardless if he didn't have that injury, for sure. But I don't know. About Hakan, I always feel like he's had a lot of power in the national team, because obviously he's kind of been the poster boy for the past decade or so. I don't know if I don't think he will be pushed aside, so to speak. I think
he might be there as how Pepe was with the Portuguese national team. Beşiktaş former player, 41. You saw him playing against us, and then many other teams. You saw them when they lost. The guy cried. He's probably is he the oldest player in the tournament? That I think officially.
I think so. Yeah, he's 41. Yeah. So
I mean, what he gave in this tournament, it was awesome, and I never seen Pepe play this way.
It's a very different type, though, right? Like Hakan Çalhanoğlu is used to being a star.
But the thing is, when you're playing in the midfield, playing in defense and playing in midfield is huge difference. And as it is, a lot of people complain about Hakan Çalhanoğlu. He slows the game down when he plays for a national team. It's different when he plays for Türkiye and then when he plays his team overseas. Another point that I want to make here, Khan, and all the guys, and I think if you look at our roster right now, the first 11, pretty much 8 of those guys are from outside of Türkiye. The teams in the Turkish Super Leagues, even though we had player that from Beşiktaş did not start. He only played 5 minutes in the last match. Semih Kılıçsoy. I think all the teams in Turkish Super League has to more concentrate on the farm junior level teams to start at age 12. If you want, you could see that. That's why a lot of these teams. And if we didn't have Ferdi Kadıoğlu on the left fullback, we saw Ferdi Kadıoğlu. Those who follows me, I think I said this many times on Twitter, when he was 15 years old, when he was coming from the farm team in Netherlands, and you guys know this gentleman too, Koos, attorney at the Netherlands. He was the one told me about Ferdi Kadıoğlu. Then when I looked at him at the time, we're talking about it, I think Ferdi Kadıoğlu, just like Arda Güler, he had that potentials. But when he came to Turkey, he was a winger. They made him a fullback.
Yeah.
Now he plays like a winger in every match. Look at the last 3 matches. He must have done in every match over 50 or 14 or 13 kilometers in each match. This guy is a workhorse on this team. And that's why I think young players like Ferdi Kadıoğlu, Arda Güler, Müldür, Barış Alper Yılmaz, the fast winger. And probably at least 10 more guys like this who are very teenagers yet and playing in overseas. We have to get those guys into the Turkish national team system with a big roster.
How do you feel about the foreign limit? Do you think that removing
I'm
it?
not really for it.
Yeah.
I think it should be a limit, and I think foreign players bring in quality players, not somebody who wants to retire in Turkey. Make it Turkish Super League as a Saudi Arabia league. I'm not for it, and I think we should see more Turkish players on this team, who are playing the junior level teams.
So don't you think they should play when they're good enough? Because we've had a foreign limit for, I've been watching Turkish football for 25 years, and for the majority of that, we've had a foreign limit. And what it usually causes is that very bang average, mediocre, even subpar players get ridiculous amount of minutes because they have to, because they need Ismail Koybashi, they need those type of players.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The junior level teams, the players, the coaches should be trained to train these junior level players much stronger, much better. That is not going on in Turkey right now, because if you look at all the even Beşiktaş and Fenerbahçe, Galatasaray junior teams, their coaches underpaid, and what would you expect from underpaid coach to bring up a good player? You need to have a good coaching system who gets paid well, so he could bring out good, educated, and at the very young age, what we talk about, age of 14 is the limit, when the player at the age 14 should know that you could see that he has a chance playing on the team. But we don't do that. Believe me, I've been in Beşiktaş camp many times. Just 2015, I was there about 9 years ago. I saw how that what we call altyapı, the farm system works. It is who you got your player in there. Who the managers, that manager gets your player in, your son in there.
Hey, look at Utku Yuvakuran. Huh?
Right.
He won how many?
Yeah, that was even the A team, not the youth team.
No, he wasn't in the youth team, but look, he has his position in Beşiktaş, or had this position for years as the third goalkeeper because of who his dad is and who he knows and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
he had no business being there.
That has to change.
Yeah.
That has to change.
Ahmet, we have a friend, and he used to co-host this podcast with me, actually, a young man named Evron, and he's kind of chronicled for us, personally as our friend, just his, how difficult it's been for him, because he's been trying to become a pro for years, and he tried in Turkey, from the BAL level, from the amateur league.
Right.
And it's just, exactly what you're talking about, right? Like there's this kind of corruption and this these people who kind of feel like they belong. And anybody
mindset.
Very cliquish, and like they'll be smoking in the dugout, and and like he spoke about how his professionalism, his athleticism was always sort of levels above everyone else on the team, but he just couldn't even get, couldn't get a sniff of playing time. So I mean, it sounds like a difficult situation.
What I witnessed, I was at one of the team's training camps. I'm not gonna mention name of the team. And the players were in the training camp. And then after the training camp, players that smoked and drank they hide their cigarettes and their beers under the bed. After the training was over, at night they would do smoking and the drinking beer.
What year was that, Ahmet abi? What year was that?
2007.
Oh, that's not even that long ago. That's terrible.
I mean, look. I mean, in Italy, everyone smokes, right? Like it's not a good habit, and an athlete shouldn't have it. But I mean, you can still be successful and do that. But
smoking's one thing, but to have beers during your summer camp, that's next level. Like these guys will clearly be hungover for the next day in training.
Yeah,
it's very unprofessional.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think like Ahmet Abi says, it has to start changing at the ground level. I think.
Yeah, the junior level, it has to change. And
there's also,
and I think
there's a lot of talent in those youth teams, but the problem is they don't get chances until they're 21, 22, and that's too late.
It works like who you know on the team. Yeah. It's not. I mean, we just check this out. Arda Güler came from Gençler Ankara,
yeah.
And as a matter of fact, he came to, I believe, Beşiktaş. They did not like him. He went to Galatasaray. They did not like him, and then finally Fenerbahçe paid the price and got him. And I think they did the right thing. But I think they knew it then. They saw something in Arda Güler. So it's very, it's player to find a player like Arda Güler when he's 14. It's tough these days, because the way that you have to have a good parent who has well earnings, eating well, sleeping well, and that's not the case in Turkey in these days, because the inflation, the prices of the foods, a lot of these kids, and they take the bus to come to practices, and even like Altınordu now, I'm going to tell you this, Altınordu used to have residency in their camp. Now they canceled that. They don't have residency camps anymore.
Mm-hmm.
All their players coming from outside daily with the bus or something. They don't live there. But it's not the case in a lot of the junior level teams in Europe. When they see something in you at the age 12, 14, they make sure you go to school, and then you get trained and you eat right food, and get your physical, as far as the getting build up muscles right there in their, camp.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening with Turkey. Is a lot of Turkish teams.
Yeah, no, I agree, Ahmet abi. It's a problem with the funding, because instead of funding youth development like they should be doing, like all the big European nations do. I mean, the reason why Germany have been such a force for such a long time, I'm sure in the early 2000s they invested like millions into youth development, whereas our teams always invest the money into aging old stars. But if we actually invested that money into our youth systems and had decent facilities for them, good coaches, as you were talking about earlier on, Ahmet abi, the coaches in the youth teams they're getting the minimum wage. They're getting 17,000 lira, which is about $400, like 350 British pounds, maybe.
It's a joke.
So
it's a joke.
Yeah, they're very underpaid. So if we're actually the sixth biggest football economy in Europe, but because we don't invest the money in the right places, you've got Galatasaray spending 10 million wages a year on Mauro Icardi, like. As much as Rafa Silva is a great transfer, we're giving him 6 million in wages. If we took some of that money and actually invested that into our youth facilities, we could be unstoppable. We've got 80 million people in our country.
The problem is though,
population-wise,
with the system we have, with the socio system, so to speak, like that's a lot of long-term planning. And by the time you reap the rewards or something like that, we're like 10, 15 years down the road. And these boards that come in for a 4-year stint or whatever it is, they're not looking at that. I mean, now with Asanarat, they're investing in the youth and all that and in the facilities, but we still have to wait and see how effective was it.
Yeah.
As a fans, a lot of teams, this goes with the same with Beşiktaş. Galatasaray, Fenerbahçe, and Trabzonspor fans. They're desperate to win the championship. And if the team goes bad, and you know what happens on the social media, these fans go crazy. There's only one champion in this. Out of 19 teams, it's going to be one champion. So the fan base is the problem I see in Turkey too. That's a different story for different program. But I think the knowledge fans, and we have a lot of youngsters, that teenagers, that are right now on Twitter, and so they call themselves soccer fans, making things harder for these football teams. Because let's face it, if you want to build for future, and like you said, Kartal, I mean, bringing in Icardi is a huge thing, because you know what? You're selling tickets, you're selling uniforms, and also when you bring the Icardi, you're making your team be in foreign media all the time, and then when he scores goals, and you're earning more money. And I think Galatasaray, while bringing Icardi, I think they already doubled his salary. But the thing is, that's for short term, and these teams never talk about or predict the long term. If they do that, you know what happens, as Khan said, and you're out in 2 or even 1 year. That's what happened to the president before this one at Galatasaray. They shoot him out in less than 1 year. When things went on really bad, when Galatasaray finished the season at 13th place. Look what happened afterwards. They turned the team around and they won the championship. So it's for short terms. The fans love it, but I think it's not the right thing. And I think, like I said, the fans makes this teams go around, and I think the fans shouldn't be so much involved with teams' decisions, if you ask me. And this isn't the case with the coaching and team presidents too.
To reiterate your point, Ahmet, you look at every league that would theoretically be at about the par of the Turkish league. Let's say the Portuguese league, the Dutch league, and I mean maybe we're flattering ourselves a little bit. I mean they're perhaps a little better at this point in time. But all of these leagues have, their top teams are essentially developmental teams, right? You look at the Dutch, like Ajax is the most obvious example, but in Portugal with Sporting or Benfica, they're constantly kind of churning out young talent that's getting snapped up by the Premier League. It's such a key aspect of sustaining success, right? Like and building it properly so that you're, when one generation of talent finally gets sold out and you get a ton of money back in for them, you've already got the next generation coming in. And typically even there's an eagerness for fans of those teams to see their players go out because they're already excited about young prospects that they want to see coming into the starting team. Like you need to have that mentality, I think, to sort of build something sustainably that you can not just succeed with on the pitch, but succeed with financially to the extent that you can then, when the opportunity arises where you can get a really good, let's say 26-year-old star, right? You have the funds to bring that person in without, in Turkey, whenever the opportunity arises, it's like, who's going to sponsor this? Do we have someone who's going to pay for the contract? And, I think, you should be able to take care of these things on your own by producing talent and, producing the funding on your own, right?
The fact alone that you need an outside, that you need a board member to pay the wages or the signing bonus or whatever, or an external sponsor to pay for this and that alone shows you that your club isn't financially sustainable and that it is not a transfer that you should be doing under normal circumstances. On the flip side of the medallion, though, I do think there are advantages as well to get guys like Icardi, because you can get someone like that, and then you can put someone like a Semih Kılıçsoy next to that, and because of the attention that Icardi, the eyeballs that Icardi gets on your league, on your team, that will in turn then put those eyeballs on the local talent, like a Barış Alper Yılmaz, for example, at Galatasaray, or like a Semih, or Arda last season. So there are advantages to getting these players, and I don't think we shouldn't be.
I mean, Icardi Icardi is an exceptional case of it too, right? Like
Well,
that's,
let me tell you guys. Icardi was the name that a lot of foreign teams that went for, foreign media followed the Turkish Super League. This year, I think that's going to change. I think Joseph Mourinho, the special one, that being in the Turkish Super League as a coach, it's going to make Turkish Super League very watched league because of him.
Yeah, for sure.
If things go right on for Fenerbahce,
Maybe even more if it doesn't. Because who doesn't want to see Jose Mourinho throwing an absolute hissy fit? I mean,
you're gonna see more foreign news reporters at Fenerbahce matches wherever they go. So I think it's a plus for Turkish Super League this year. But I think if the ugly gets uglier, that could be a disadvantage for Turkish football, because what's going to happen. They're going to show everything that is ugly happening in the Turkish Super League when Joseph, Mourinho is there. Yeah. So hopefully we'll have a good season. I know Super League will start in the second part of the August and towards the end of August or
at the
middle. They haven't
at the end of August, I think. The Beşiktaş will play their first game around the 20th of August for the Europa League qualifiers.
That's for the Europa League, but the league starts before then.
Does it start before?
I think the league is going to start
13th, maybe
somewhere August 15th or something. Yeah, but the schedule is not up. That's another thing that Turkish Football Federation is busy. President especially trying to elect himself again. But I think that's why they're busy. I think that in the middle of this month, and July 18th is the election?
July 18th, the election is RBS. But
we'll see what happens. But I think before that, they should announce the schedule so the teams know what they're playing. At least we have 19 teams instead of playing with 20 teams, one less. Yeah. So, it's a long season. As you know, the national league matches start with the Turkish national team on September. That's going to be interesting because whatever Turkey does on that tournament, that'll affect the World Cup qualifications. As you know, that's a huge difference. Let's hope that we win a lot of games. One other thing that I forgot that came in yesterday, I think Turkey before went to this tournament, they were in the 42nd, and they're in 26th place now. It's a huge jump. And I think since 2002, that is the biggest jump that I saw over.
It is.
But it's a big inflation as well because of teams in Asia. They play their version of the Nations League and they get points based on that. So Australia and stuff like that are ranked higher,
but I think
than they would realistically be.
I think winning against Georgia, even though they're low ranked, and as a low ranked team going into this tournament and upsetting a couple teams like Czechia and Austria, that gave Turkey a good strong standings right now with 26. I think they should move up in this coming year, 2025, if we do the same thing. I mean, if we play like we played against Austria, that 90 minutes, I will never forget. I mean, everyone should look at the 10. Was that the game that they were? No, Czechia was 10 men, right?
10 men, that was 10 men. Czechia, They were down to 10
and
20 minutes.
Austria match, I will never forget that match. I mean, these kids were up and down 90 minutes. It was not against Netherlands. We did not play against the match that we played against Austria. It was the one that will be remembered. Even the media here, Sinan probably saw this. ESPN, Fox showed wall to wall that match, and they said most entertained team of the tournament was Turkey. until this, Netherlands.
I think that
And
the
I think-
games in general, whether it's the team, I think it's mainly the matches because they were so open-ended, and they were up, and
Right.
both teams, and almost all the games we played, like both teams went for it, right? And we've seen we've seen a lot of great football at Euro 2024, but then we've seen a lot of matches from France and from England.
Oh my! We
and
saw
those were
some
horrible.
boring football.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah,
about
Whenever
England.
whenever France or England play, it's a snooze fest.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And to co-sign what Ahmet was talking about earlier, I mean, it's true that the press in the U.S. was really, I almost want to say, kind of hyper-focused on how entertaining Turkey had become, and there was, like, the Mert save was like I think it was like
That was the
2 or
talk of the
3.
town, yes.
Yeah, it was the Sports Center top 10. They do like the top 10 highlights of the day in sports.
Yep.
And Mert save was, I think, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And just generally speaking, there was such a positive vibe about the Turkish team. I mean, it was interesting hearing our group chat talk about some of the politics, and obviously, like, a lot of our friends are in the Netherlands, and they dealt with kind of anti-Turkish discrimination, and our friends in Germany and stuff. But here in the United States, it's funny, like, all of my friends were writing me like, "Go Turkey! Like, this is so fun!" And like, I'm rooting.
All the sports bars were showing our matches live. And the other thing that Arda Öcal, the kid that from ESPN,
From Canada,
he does the show Canada. Actually, he lives in Boston area now. He was born in Canada, and he wore his Turkish jersey, Türkiye jersey, to one of the programs he did. So it is, maybe it's some other program we'll talk about. And Sinan probably witnessed this. And I've been here longer than Sinan, but I can tell you this. Seeing in 80s, İlyas Tüfekçi on only one channel, public station, when there was no soccer, no football in American TV. Right now, forget the cable TV like ESPN soccer stuff. Your regular channel, Fox TV, everyone who watches, normal people don't have a cable, could watch this tournament. And what the American people that love soccer, football, and they're in love with the Turkey national team from here in the United States, I could say that too.
Yeah, it was like so stark to hear our European friends talking about their experiences with it, because it's like the total opposite. I was literally at the cafe earlier, and I put my shirt on to get ready for the podcast. And I was like, "Oh, I'll go out and get a coffee and a little snack." Yeah. And at the cafe, the guy was like, "Oh man, I was like rooting for you guys." Like, what was it yesterday? He was so hyped about the Turkish national team, and he was like, "That guy yelled at him," or what? Like, I mean, I forget how he pronounced it. I don't want to. Like, I'm yeah, whatever. But it was hilarious, But like, yeah, they were super into what we were doing. So yeah, I mean, it was.
It was a good run overall. We talked about Turkish national. I think we had, like I said, I'm gonna come to the main thing that I said in the beginning of the program. I think this was a great run since 2008, and it was a great finish. It could have been better, yes, but I think this young generation played their hearts off, especially against Austria. And this was it. I think we had a good tournament. Guys, if you don't have any questions.
One question I have for you, Ahmet abi. Obviously Montella made mistakes, but would you keep him going forwards? Does he stay in charge of the national team in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I said that in the beginning, Khan. I'm no problem with him coaching. He's a bright coach. He's 50 years old, and we saw what he did with the Adana Demirspor. We saw what he did in his country with the teams that he coached. He's got a mind, but I think instead of insisting some issues like playing without the striker or shadow striker type of thing, I think right now this team cannot go on playing without the striker.
Yeah, definitely.
He has to make up his mind about this. If he insists on this when these matches coming up in September, and he does the same thing, not play. Why would you have? I don't see in the mentality of football any guy that loves football or teaches football, coaches football, not having a team without a striker. It to me is awkward.
Yeah.
I know he's got fast players, but when you set up plays from your midfield, you need to have somebody in the striker position so you could have defenders that protect him while your wings open. That knowledge, I think it doesn't go by me.
It's weird.
He's a
It's
good
weird
coach,
though, right? Because he was a striker himself.
Yeah, it is just weird. That's the only problem I have. I just have that problem with him. I don't hate him. He thinks that people don't like him. It's his enemy. We're not enemy of Vincenzo Montella. We're just, everyone, even a lot of journals criticize Şenol Güneş, criticize Fatih Terim a lot of times. When you do something wrong, it is better to see from outside, and on the sideline you can see some things. I think he's insistent in this tournament playing without the striker, and he tried that, and he was insistent playing without the Arda Güler. We saw that against Portugal. Then he decided, you know what he said? Oh, Arda Güler is my main player. I hope after this match, what happened in the Netherlands match, that will be the end of it. I think the next match that Turkey will play in September will go out there on the pitch with a striker.
Yeah,
Let's
I totally
hope
agree with
so.
that. Ahmet, there's one question from our YouTube fan base. Our friend Mario, who's from New Jersey, originally, he lives in Antalya now, but he said, "Where is Bob based now? Which state?" And that's a good question. I wondered that too.
What state? I'm in New York State.
Oh, you're still here with? Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
you just moved upstate.
You know where Niagara Falls?
Mm-hmm.
If you, I'm between Syracuse and Buffalo, hour and a half away from Niagara Falls.
Yeah. I've got a question for you, Ahmet abi. Whereabouts in Izmir are you from originally? Because my dad actually grew up in Izmir, and I've spent Izmir myself. So whereabouts in Izmir are you from?
Sure. Well, say again. I did not hear the last part.
Where in Izmir are you from?
Oh, Izmir. Okay. Kartal. I was born in Bergama, Izmir.
I've spent a lot of time in Balchova.
Oh yeah, Balchova. Yeah, I have relatives in Balchova too.
Yeah, my dad grew up in Balchova, so I've spent a lot of time there.
My uncle.
So I know Izmir well.
Yeah, my uncle, as a matter of fact, his kids still live in Balchova.
Oh, nice.
Yep. I know pretty much Izmir. Karşıyaka, I lived in Karşıyaka too.
Yeah, I love
Izmir is a beautiful city. Believe
Definitely.
me.
Yeah, no, I've spent a lot of time in Izmir. Bostanlı, for example, in Karşıyaka, I think Bostanlı is probably my favorite place.
Oh yeah, that's the high end of Karşıyaka right there.
Yeah.
If you go back, Kartal, if you go back to Izmir, go to Alsancak. You know, in Izmir we call Smith is Gevrek.
Yeah, Gevrek, yeah.
There's a Gevrek place over there. Make sure to eat Gevrek over there.
Yeah, no, as I said, I've spent a lot of time in Izmir, a lot of time. Like, I lived there for 6 months as well a couple of years ago. I've been going there since I was 3 months old, so I know Izmir very, very well.
Nice. And we have a team coming from Izmir to Turkish Super League now. Göztepe.
Yeah.
There we go, yeah.
I went to the opening game of the Göztepe Stadium. They played us.
Die-hard fans. Die-hard fans.
See, we had to get a police escort from the. Do you know where the Floor is in Izmir?
Yeah.
Izmir Floor. We got an escort from there. Beşiktaş fans, we all got an escort from there to the stadium. But it was a great match.
What year was that?
It was 2020. So when the new stadium.
4 years ago.
Yeah. See, when the new stadium opened in Göztepe.
Yes, I haven't been there, but I know where it is. It's right by in the Göztepe area. You know the.
Yeah, it's just see if you the Göztepe side, you just turn right, you go up. It's right there. Yeah, that was the opening game of that stadium, and they beat us 2-1. But it was a very good atmosphere.
Oh, that was 2000. 4 years ago they opened that new stadium.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
old stadium was good too, but they didn't have much, stands there. They rebuilt it. Yeah.
Amenities, right?
Yeah. All right, guys.
Ahmet, I just want to say one last thing to you, Ahmet. And I've already kind of spoken my reverence out, put it out there. But seriously, thank you so much for everything you've done for the community.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate your, the things that you said about me. I appreciate it, and it is, like I said, it's my hobby. It's just nothing else.
A labor of love.
I have a big passion for Turkish football, like you guys. I know. Just to end this program, my dad was a Beşiktaş fan. My dad was tailor, and in his tailor shop in 1960s, he had all those Beşiktaş players framed on his all over store, and we had players. I remember Kör Tuğrul. I remember Sabri. I remember Sanlı, Kaya, all those players. And my dad took me every time Beşiktaş came to Izmir, took me to the game. My first match was against Altay, and I saw Yusuf, the great Beşiktaş man. That man took the ball from 18-yard line of Beşiktaş side and went into Altay's 18-yard line and then flipped the ball after dribbling 8 guys and then scored a goal on Tanzer. Never forget that. So that was the old Alsancak Stadium, and ever since that, I'm a Beşiktaş fan, but I'm not a fanatic. I'm a realist, and my heart belongs to Beşiktaş. I could say that.
All right.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Thank you very much, Ahmet
perfect
Abi,
choice.
for joining us and for making time.
No.
And enjoy the rest
Thank
of the
you.
day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Khan. Thanks, Sinan. Thanks, Kartal. Nice to be with you guys.
See you later.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
That was great to have some insight from Ahmet Abi, his thoughts on the tournament.
Sure, for sure.
Some very nice takes and a nice story there at the end from him about how Beşiktaş fan. Very nice to hear.
All right,
Khan, do you want to hear?
I'm gonna try.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. You want to change the graphic back?
Yeah, give it a shot. Let's see. Now, one thing though, the guys in the chat are gonna have to help me. Are you hearing them come in double, or are you hearing them singular when they're talking?
Hey Mario, you're a man out there. Are we coming in too loud? Kartal, you speak so we can confirm that the whole group is coming in at the right volume.
Yeah, I think they're probably gonna hear you double. So I just need to confirm that or not.
We should have kept an eye there on the chat.
I have been. I've been on it. I saved a couple questions for after Ahmet left. I figured, they're a little more like contentious, So, how are we coming in?
No feedback at the moment.
No feedback. Mario, probably a delay. So it's like keep chat. All right. So let me dabble with some of the comments from the chat that we've missed. So obviously there were some technical issues to start with, which I mean it's not a Black Eagle podcast without a few.
Yeah. Some very nice broke over.
I haven't even heard that yet. I'm not ready for that. Hold on. A little funny. Yeah, I noticed that myself. So that's why I'm. We're sort of delaying. We're dilly-dallying while we wait for the response. But anyway. Where were we? Damn it! I just skipped the question. Someone asked, if not Montella, then who? And I didn't, I was getting the vibe that Ahmet was very pro Montella. So what do you guys think? If Montella were to be gotten rid of, because I think the three of us are probably more anti-Montella than Ahmet was.
All right, I confirmed that you guys are coming in double, so I should have fixed that now. Yeah, that's an interesting question, Sina. Guys, sorry for the double noise. Should be fixed now. Interesting question. That's the thing I was thinking as well, because obviously I think all of us have been very critical of Montella because of the way he has treated Simi, and I think just the fact that he insisted on playing no strikers throughout the tournament almost felt like to spite Simi and that kind of stuff. But if you look at the general landscape of international football, if you look at there are very few top managers in charge of national teams, and I think that's the question. If you get rid of Montella, then who? Right?
Yeah. And for the record, that was a follow-up to Carlito's question. And by the way, shout out to Carlito and Mario. Sort of a Spider-Man meme moment, right? Because I thought you were the same person for a minute there. But Carlito said Montella needs to go. His strategy made Turkey lose the game against the Netherlands, which I also agree with. And I think even Ahmet, they agree with that to some extent. But then he could have learned from his mistakes after the Austria game. I would argue he probably could have learned from his mistakes in the group stage.
Yeah, I agree.
Regarding not playing a striker, right? Because it was essentially putting a striker that got him through the group stage to begin with. So I think that was a lesson that he could have learned much earlier than even Austria. I mean, not much, right? But, it's game by game, I guess. But, yeah, I mean, my only hesitation regarding getting rid of Montella, just offhand, and then we'll talk about who we would bring in otherwise, is exactly this question. Who would we bring in otherwise? And, you have this hesitation, I don't want to see, Fatih Terim, right? What Montella didn't do well, I think I don't want to say he compensated for by doing other things slightly differently, but there was a little bit more tactical variation than we've seen historically from the Turkish national side. And I think, although this zero striker innovation was honestly kind of garbage, I mean, it was at least some attempt to sort of play on our strengths as he perceived them, and I don't think we would have seen anything from Terim besides just pro Galatasaray TFF nonsense, which we already got a good taste of regardless.
I don't know. I always thought that Fatih Terim was relatively. I thought he did the. I never really felt like he was overly pro Galatasaray when he was coaching. I thought there was more of that now than there was in the Terim era. The silly things like Yunus Akgün even being in the squad and then playing against Portugal. That's one of the most blatant things that I can think of. And but then on the flip side of the coin, I think Barış Alper obviously played a great tournament, but I don't think that Montella did him any favors, because now he has this tournament in his pocket where he showed himself physically. He ran for 90 minutes and he impressed a lot of people because of that. But at the end of the day, it's still two big zeros. He didn't get a single assist, he didn't get a single goal, and he played every game, full 90 minutes.
Sorry, time out. I just meant that if Fatih Terim were the coach now, under this Mehmet Büyükekşi, in this generation of the TFF, it would, theoretically, it would be even more.
I've got a bit of a hot take. I think Fatih Terim would make a good TFF president.
Yeah. Okay. I mean.
Yeah, I mean...
Although I want to get rid of this whole, Galatasaray bias. I would love, frankly, a full refresh. Although, granted, if you got rid of the kind of, middlemen and the managerial kind of corruption on some ends of the TFF, maybe... Because, Fatih Terim obviously has a good football mind, right? Or honestly, I would take Şenol Güneş, if we're going to be 100%,
Because we'll tell you what I liked about Fatih Terim, because see when he came back as coach in the mid-2010s, it was him that scrapped the foreigner limit. That was his idea. That was all him. So I think his role at that point was, it wasn't just coach. It was he had some sort of backstage role as well,
general manager. Essentially,
I think he was like
what Hamid is.
the football director of the country.
Yeah, he essentially had like Hamid's role. And I think
he was the coach,
I think that's the biggest issue is Hamid Altintop and obviously Mehmet Büyükeş, but I think Hamid Altintop is a massive cancer to Turkish football.
Although don't you feel like I don't know, personally, like because of Hamid Altintop's like past, coming from German football, not being that tied up in the sort of local politics of
he clearly is though. He clearly is.
Well, no, and that's what I mean is that like, don't you feel like maybe he's sort of inherited that from like Büyükeş or like some other faction maybe above him, like he's just kind of following orders, which to be granted, right? Like, Henna, Arendt, like banality of evil, right? There's no value in following fucking orders, but like, nonetheless.
Conspiracy theory. Essentially, obviously, Hamid Altintop played for Galatasaray at the end of his career. He was injured for much of that time. I think he had a big 3 or 4 year deal. Didn't play that much. Was on like 3 million a year. And didn't play for most of that time. So there is a conspiracy theory that he's paying back his debts to Galatasaray just now. So there you go, boys. So basically, he feels bad.
How is he paying back his debts to Galatasaray by spiting one of the hottest, youngest talents in Turkey? I don't really quite understand.
But like guys like Yunus Akgün and stuff like that, and like obviously Barış Alper, like he is a great player, should be playing right wing.
Yeah.
But like all these, basically him playing as a striker, guys like Yunus Akgün playing. Basically, the conspiracy theorists are saying he's just marketing Galatasaray's players for them. And you could argue he kind of is doing that. I mean, Galatasaray players that aren't deserving of a place in the squad, you could argue that is the case. So
I think
there is a plausible argument for it. I'm not saying it's true or not.
Other than Yunus Akgün, which of the Galatasaray players is not deserving of the spot though? Like I think they all are, right?
I mean,
you could
think they deserve the spot, but
could have probably played more, right?
Yeah, they deserve this. They deserve it. For example, Barış Alper deserves to be in the top 11, but he shouldn't be the striker.
No, of course he shouldn't be the striker. That's true. But
yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think you do him, like I said, I don't think you do him any favors, because like I think if he had a striker that he could actually cross the ball to, he might have gotten a couple of assists. Well,
and to back you up, I think that the moments where he kind of captured people's imagination, and like we were talking about, like the U.S. press speaking positively of the Turkish national team, and a lot of it was Barış Alper kind of making those runs, and they were always after he'd been moved to the wing.
Yeah,
later in games.
On the wing, definitely.
Yeah, no, it was later in games. Yeah, all of his big chances that he'd created, and all of his big moments were after he'd been shifted to the wing for whoever, when he was experimenting with like a false 9, or when he finally brought in like Cenk Tosun. And there's another aspect of it, like even if he wanted to spite Semih Kılıçsoy by bringing in Cenk Tosun, then fucking do it. Like bring in Cenk Tosun, but like play a striker, man. And again, like we finally got our big moment because he brought on a striker who scored the big goal, and I felt like that was a moment for him to learn from, where Montella would have been like, okay. Clearly, like that's what we need to do, but it didn't happen. But so okay, let me go back to the comments, guys, because we've fed the machine, so to speak. Mario said, should he be left on in order to learn from his mistakes? I think he's talking about Montella, obviously. To learn from his mistakes and redeem himself come September. Carlito goes fair challenge, as far as like what I said about fearing the next hire, I guess. He said, but it's not from strength to keep someone because we think there is a lack of a better candidate. I mean, and a big note.
I think there's one candidate, and like I'm seeing a lot of people online like say, well, it's just the coach, like the friends in the media trying to get, because obviously as soon as the tournament ended, like there was a shitstorm in the media on Montella, and people saying he should get like high profile journalists like really calling for his head. And like I've been very critical of Montella during these Euros, but I do think, despite the fact that he made plenty of mistakes, I do still think that like I think he's done what he should. Like he's overperformed. The team has overperformed. Now whether or not that's him,
He didn't overperform the team.
yeah,
did.
I agree with that. However, I think it's very difficult to get a really good coach to a national team. Like just look at the national teams across the world. Like there's you can count them on one hand the amount of top coaches are in charge of national teams. You know, Marcelo Bielsa, Julian Nagelsmann, and I'm already spacing, you know? Like
No, and to piggyback on what you're saying, just think about how Jose Mourinho's whole narrative went from I'm not going to coach a national team, you know, I'm at the height of my career, to where he's kind of gotten to this point. Now he's like, you know, now I feel like I'm ready to coach the Portuguese
but
national
he's
team, right?
66 years old or something, right?
Exactly.
Or 60,
No,
62? I'm not sure.
61.
But
It's what you do when some of your other options dry out.
That, and also I
let's be
think, you
real.
know, once you get to a later stage in life, like, but that's the top coaches that coach national teams are always older. The only exception is Julian Nagelsmann. I think, you know, Ralf Rangnick is 66 or something like that. Like, and look, other than that, look at Portugal. Who's Portugal's coach? Roberto Martinez. It's not a top coach. You know, Gareth Southgate for England, not a top coach.
He was the Middlesbrough coach before, you know, that was his most high-profile job
Didier
before
Deschamps.
England.
Didier Deschamps obviously has done amazing things result-wise with
but
France,
he's not-
but plays horrendous football and never really did anything at club level. Ronald Koeman is probably the most decorated, one of the most decorated coaches, but even him, he's not an elite coach. Like that's my point. Like national teams don't attract elite coaches because elite coaches, they want club teams. That's what they want. They want to be active year in, year out, week in, week out, whatever. So if you're gonna replace him, like you're not gonna get a super high profile. You're not gonna get Jose Mourinho to coach the Turkish national team, right? We in the past we had Guus Hiddink coaching the Turkish national team, and that didn't really.
Was it the end of his career, though?
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on,
That
hold
was
on.
the end of his
Hold on.
career.
Keep yourself up there. I don't need the main camera, but just to reiterate kind of what you're saying, to piggyback on it, to keep you going. How many of those coaches that you've named would we have been happy with had Besiktas hired? Right, like not.
Exactly.
None,
Yeah.
maybe, right? Maybe Rangnick.
Yeah.
You know, I would have been.
Rangnick, I would be. Yeah, but that's Rangnick, Nagelsmann, and Bielsa are like the exceptions to the rule. You know, those are top coaches, even though two of them are really old or older. You know, but like the point is that the majority of national teams, even the high-profile national teams, like you know, look at Spain, their coach is De La Fuente. That's not a massive name in the coaching world. He's doing a great job.
He's all coached youth teams.
Spalletti.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the response from Besiktas fans if we'd hired Gareth Southgate?
Yeah, people would go crazy.
Like,
Spalletti is
Misty
probably
Fa,
another
Misty
example
Fa.
because he has just had that major high with Napoli. But like in general, even the high-profile national teams struggle on getting really good coaches. And I think that's one of the issues with if you fire Montella, who's gonna come? And I think the only logical candidate would be Sergen. And that's what I don't like about some of the tweets I've been seeing of like the people who are rightfully so, I think, going against the grain and saying, look, hey, stop this coaching carousel bullshit. We don't need Fatih Terim back. We don't need Şenol Güneş back. But then those same people are mentioning Sergen in the same breath. And I think that's a little weird because Sergen has never had the job. Yeah, exactly. So if he would have had the job before and it would have failed or whatever, then okay, I understand. But I actually think that Sergen would be a very good candidate for the job. I think he should have probably gotten the job when Montella got it, but they went with Montella instead.
I
should have got it when. In fact, I suppose he was still Besiktas coach when Couldn't got it. But I was going to say he could have got it then as well.
Yeah.
But obviously, he was still with us. So. Yeah. At that time, we were happy they didn't.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, we were angry because they lured. We were. I think we were kind of in the impression that they tempted Şenol Güneş, and then he got like.
Yeah.
He started going downhill after they started courting him, right?
They got in his head. Yeah.
And then they were doing the same thing with Sergen, so obviously we were pissed. But I think that for the national team,
and Sergen stayed.
I think but Şenol stayed as well, and. Because they were courting him like after our double championship, they were courting him already. They were trying to lure.
Yeah, before they got Lucescu, and Well, my suggestion is Okan Buruk should be the next coach. Do you think
exactly? So, I agree with you. Okan Buruk should be the next national team coach. It's a good shout, Kartal. 100%.
Anything that fucks up the stability of Galatasaray, I support. I'll put that. But real quick, I wanted to make a few comments on this. First of all, if we keep Montella, I feel like I'd be okay with that. Like,
if he starts playing, if he stops dicking around Simi.
Exactly. If he plays fucking Semi, and a part of me feels like if we sold Semi this summer, which is I'm probably likely still, he'll probably start playing. So fuck it, like whatever.
I mean, look what he showed in those 5 minutes he played against the Netherlands yesterday. Like, I mean, I think if he would have gotten,
he almost
if he gets the same amount of minutes Kevin gets, or I think he would have probably earned himself a transfer.
But so second of all, I wouldn't mind maybe one of those like off the beat freaking options that we saw when we were looking for a coach towards the end of the, like a Solskjaer, right? Or, something like that, maybe, someone who's trying to resuscitate their career, but who's had experience, enough pedigree, I guess you could say, who's dealt with enough egos that he could even maybe suppress the freaking TFF, who is the biggest ego of all when it comes to the Turkish national team. Someone like that who's of a high enough profile that, like, maybe some of those shitheads would back off. But then beyond that, like, I Sergen Yalchin, I think, would be honestly kind of an ideal candidate. And I think,
I know Katla kind of said as a joke, but Okan would actually be, that is the number one candidate. Because, like, look, he's won back-to-back titles now with Galatasaray. He won a title with Başakşehir. Like, he's proven himself.
And you don't need... His deficiencies tactically are kind of what international football lacks in general already, right?
And I think Okan is actually, should be the number one candidate, 100%.
What about Ismail Kartal?
No.
Yeah.
No, we don't. Even Fener.
I'm kind of worried. I'm kind of worried that, like, the next one they're gonna go after is gonna be Murat Yakin. I think that's gonna be like, oh, he did great with Switzerland, so we need to get him. No, let us.
But Khan, you're starting to sound like.
Yeah, but he's right though. He's right though. Like, this is a coach that refused. That had to be forced to take an assistant because he was doing so shit.
Tactically, right? Yeah, he supposedly brought in a tactical expert to help him out.
Let's move on to some more questions, Sinan.
Okay. So, I mean, a lot of it we've actually kind of covered through this conversation about theoretical next coaches. As I said, Carlito said Montella needs to go.
Let's get the Beşiktaş talk going, guys. If you got any Beşiktaş related questions, start those coming. That's
the Black Eagles podcast.
Exactly. Kata, you were saying there was some breaking news like 50 minutes ago.
Yeah, huge news. Daniel Amartey and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain will not be taken to Maribor for the camp. They've both been told to fight teams.
Wow.
Yeah. Amartey I was expecting, but I'm quite surprised about Chamberlain, to be honest. I knew that we want to get rid of him. I think that's the correct thing to do. We all want rid of him, but I don't know if it's a good idea not taking him to the camp, because I think that, like, kind of even lessens the value he already has in the football community if he's been left out of training camp. So I don't know how good of an idea it is, but if we are able to offload both, obviously it'd be fantastic. And also, Jetson Fernandez's personal trainer in Istanbul has put out a message just saying goodbye on social media. So that maybe suggests that the move to Zenit is finally going ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Yeah. So let's hear your reactions to that, Ken.
My reactions. All right. Well, I do agree with you. I think there's no point in not taking those guys to the training camp unless they're trying to save a buck, right? Like, unless they have a team lined up. Although there were some rumblings that both of them are, But I don't quite understand this, though. Like, this is what the media keeps putting out there. Like, they've been told to find a club. Didn't we just hire Brad Friedel to sell players? Like, why are these players told to find a club? Like,
People are saying
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
maybe a club has been found, and we're keeping them fit. Keeping them injury-free for whatever offer we think is incoming. Real quick, I just want to, before we move on fully to Besiktas, there were a few more comments about the national side that maybe we need to address. Mario said there's always hysteria when a coach underperforms. I don't think he should go, regarding Montella. Carlito said, what worries me is that the coach is not that relevant, but the team was unable to correct the strategical mistakes. The team could have decided to keep pressure instead of falling back. I mean, for me personally, I put them on the coach. I'll hand that to you guys in a second. But Mario said, here in Turkey, regardless of the team, they treat the new signing, player or coach, like gods in the beginning, and as soon as one match is lost, they call for them to resign, which I don't necessarily agree in regards to Montella, but I mean, surely that is a Turkish problem, right? We've seen it plenty of times.
Yeah.
Carlito says, or demand a striker, I think he needs of Montella. Mario says, example being here in Antalya with the signing of Sergen, they hyped him up way too much, and then what happened? Underperformed and left. Carlito says, Hakan should have played his role as captain, of course. We don't know the discussions, but it looked like he does not have that influence. Mario, now Antalya has the mighty Alex de Souza. Okay. What do you guys think? I mean, just to wrap this up finally. Officially, Khan, Kartal, keep Montella or no? What's your last position on the matter?
I think you keep him, see how the Nations League and all that goes. You can still fire him if he keeps his shenanigans up. If he keeps making mistakes, you can still fire him. I think the most important thing is that this TFF goes, and let's see how he functions with a TFF that isn't pushing his buttons behind the scenes.
Kartal, what's your take?
Personally, I'm leaning towards him getting fired, but I'm not too sure who would come in his place. I think Sergen would be a good shout. I think if Sergen was to come in, I'd be up for it. Volkan Buruk was to replace him, which I doubt it because he's with Galatasaray. I'd be cool with that as well. I mean, but I do see where other people are coming from. They're saying that he should get a chance to kind of right his wrongs, but I think he had plenty of chances to right those wrongs during the tournament, and he didn't. So to me, he seems a bit stubborn.
I was incredibly I honestly didn't think he'd still put Simi on. I think the fact that he put him on was a win in my head. I was like, oh, I don't care anymore if we lose. It doesn't matter. At least Simi got some minutes.
I didn't say that. I was saying after he came on, I said that if Simi scores, that'd be amazing. And almost
I said it to Kim. I said if he scores, I'm gonna go crazy, and then it almost happened. Imagine if that ball went in. That would have been such a big fuck you to all the trolls on social media that are acting like it's like it's normal that he's not playing, and that would have been a big fuck you to Montella too. But Verbrugge had an incredible save.
It was a shame. Yeah, it's just one of those things. You can't blame Semi for that. The ball comes at him very quick. He doesn't have time to react. It just kind of hits off his thigh.
Yeah, but it was still despite that, it was still a good hit. He still hit it well.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible save by Verbrugge. You should see in the Dutch media and the Dutch programs how much they're praising his save, and even in the post-match Belgium post-match show here in Belgium, they were saying how incredible save it was. So for the fact that they're saying the save was incredible also means that the effort was really good. It wasn't straight at him or anything like that.
Yeah, I think see if Semi actually gets his foot on it, he scores every time. Though.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't,
if it's not his knee,
off his thigh,
it was his knee or something.
Yeah, if he actually gets his foot on it.
Was that Kerem's cross, by the way? I don't remember whose cross it was.
I think it was, yeah, but another thing, how did Zeki not score that one? Come on. How did Zeki not score?
And he's not Gökhan Gündoğan.
Is that it, bro? Is that an empty net, man? You get one defender there. All you need to do is if you hit it hard and put a bit of height on it, it's a goal. The keeper's on the ground.
Yeah. What can I do sometimes, right?
Yeah. See, part of me though, as Jan said this as well, we're kind of saying it's such a shame we're out, but at the same time, it's quite good that we don't need to go through this stress all over again.
I mean,
it's so stressful.
I don't know about that, man. Like, I think once you get to a certain, like, for me, I think once you're in that semi-final, like, if you're in that quarterfinal, like, for us, the tournament is already a success. So whether you win or you don't, I think as long as you don't get embarrassed, and I don't think we did. I mean, we played a good game against us.
We did. So we were the best.
The team went out with their heads held high, and I think that's a great way to close a tournament. I think, like, imagine you go out the way Portugal went out against a really bad France side, and then you go out on penalties. That sucks. But we went out with our heads held high, and we could have gone to extra time. You know, if their goalkeeper didn't make an incredible save, and I think that's how Austria probably feels as well. Like they went out with their heads held high. They were one.
Yeah, they were the better team, just like we were the better team against the Netherlands. Austria were the better team against us.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with we were the better team against the Netherlands though, man. Because in the second half, all we did was lean back. Like, can you really sit like
after 2-1?
Yeah, but that's 10 minutes, Cathal. The game is 90 minutes. You know.
Yeah, but it's 77. Then if you add on, it's 13 minutes to full time, and then the plus 5. 18 minutes were very good, and we were the better team in the first half as well.
Yeah, so but come on, now you're
if you look at the actual
counting
shots
minutes,
and the chances created.
We played 75 or 80% of the second half on the back foot. Then you weren't the better team, in my opinion, man. Like, sorry, that's just...
Did we not create more chances though, bro? Yes or no?
Yeah, but you're sitting back like a bunch of bitches for 75% of the second half, man. Like, you're inviting it. You're bringing it on yourself. You're literally shooting yourself in the foot. Like, you got only yourself to blame.
Yeah.
Like, if we would have...
And that's why... Yeah.
One of the things...
That's why I'm annoyed at Montella, because, like, it just shows that team had the potential to fucking go after Holland and create chance after chance, like we did at the end of the game. We had that potential. But it wasn't until they brought in a striker that we actually started doing it. So it just the imagination runs wild. Like, see all those other games, if we had a focal point up front, like what could that, and we actually just kept going for it. What could it mean, man? I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't have beat England in the semi-final, because they've been shit.
There's no reason. Yeah, you say that, but they've been shithousing. Like, they're just the same as France. They're fucking shit, but they keep shithousing themselves out of it. Do you think that? Would you be happier going out in the semi-finals against a really shit England team, or going out against the Netherlands now the way we went out? Like, imagine if you go out the way that who's the last team that England eliminated? Switzerland? Was it Switzerland? Imagine.
Yeah, but that was on penalties. I wouldn't mind if I'd rather lose the semi-finals on penalties than lose quarter-finals in regular time, because it just means you got one step further.
I feel really bad if I was the team responsible for seeing that England team in the finals.
But see, your voice is very...
Yeah, you're very far, man.
Very low.
Yeah, you sound super far.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in another room speaking.
What did he change? He went away, and then now the sound is gone.
I just stepped away for a second.
Yeah, I don't know what you did, bro.
Still
now
messed up?
That's better.
There you go.
That's better.
How weird is freaking that?
Do you have any other questions written down, Sinan?
Hold on, no. I've been trying to cut you guys off. That's funny, like you guys couldn't hear me. No, Cartel, here's my main point about what you guys are saying. I was like, first of all, I was going to say my hot take is that I'm glad the Euro is over, that we don't need to be debating these like subsidiary points about Turkish football that don't even they don't relate to Beşiktaş, because this freaking coach didn't play the one dude who needed to freaking play, who would have represented Despite all of that, here's my main question for you specifically, Cartel. We earlier were debating about the significance of 2002 versus 2008.
Oh yeah.
And Khan and I were coming up from an era where 2002 like proved that we weren't freaking crazy. Like, look, Turkish football is actually good. Like, this is why we've been dedicating all this time and energy to watching it, and you know, the world kind of came to notice, right? But now imagine Kartal, and like you were part of the camp, and it was literally Khan and I versus everyone in that conversation because we're the old timers.
I think it was you and me versus Kartal, man.
Was that it?
Kartal was the one.
I feel like there was some other people that were maybe quietly supporting Kartal, but anyway, Kartal. For you as a proponent of the 2008 team, how much would it have pissed you off had we made it to the semifinals or even the finals with this squad as it was comprised, with this weird 4-6-0 formation with, Semi or Cenk or, whoever the striker would be being screwed over and not playing and having this weird, Barish Apariadin freaking...
Can I just...
How happy would you be to hear, let's say 5-10 years from now, some young kid being like, oh my God, that 2024 campaign where we made it all the way to the finals of the year, that was the best. Would you not have been pissed off?
I think if you make it to the semis,
proponent,
then you then Montella is I did, I've been proven right. And I think the way it ended now, I think is a good way because it kind of proved that he was wrong all along. Just the fact that we were able to muster those 18 minutes with two strikers on the pitch.
But see the thing is, guys, we're all the three of us are half Turkish, right? We're not full bloods. We're all half bloods here, right? But the three of us we're half Turkish, right? I think the team being more successful is more important than us being proven right, which we were all proven right.
I feel like that about Beşiktaş, but for the Turkish team, no, I don't give a fuck, man.
No, there's that, and B, there's the fact that, already we can all agree that Montella and this squad exceeded expectations, right? None of us expected to get through the group stages, much less get past Austria, who had just thumped us. What was it, 6-0, right? 6-1, to have beaten Austria, to have gotten to this point, right, where we can actually talk about a quarterfinals run. Already, I feel like the players flattered the coach a bit, kind of already exceeded what, not just our expectations, but what should have happened.
Take Arda Güler away, and we have a horrible tournament. I think there's everyone's talking, everyone's talking about Barry Schalper and and I think Barry Schalper had a great tournament. He showed himself.
You take out Arda Güler and you're removing 4 goals from your team.
Take Arda Güler out and we go out in the group stages.
Take Arda, and not only that, Khan. Not only that, but the credit that Montella gets for playing young players, and he didn't do that in that we had a striker who was ready to play, who he didn't play, and then he even played Cenk over him, which suggests a kind of overvaluing age and experience. But so despite that,
I think.
What did he do? What did he do for Kenan Yıldız? So he played Kenan Yıldız. He played a young kid. But by playing him without a striker, you almost undersold his abilities, because Kenan Yıldız's ability with the ball is next level, right? His ability to get past opponents, to move fluidly through defenders is amazing, right? But then where he doesn't come through is if he doesn't have someone to distribute the ball to, if he doesn't have someone who's going to take the attention of defenders so that he can maybe get a shot off, right? He's not an exceptional finisher. That's never been his skill. So he kind of needed a finisher to play off of. And so in a way, Montella kind of did him a disservice, right? He kind of undersold his capacity.
With Kenan is the problem that Kenan has, I think, is his best position is behind the striker, and that's also Arda's best position. So I think going forward in the next years, I think that's going to be a little bit of an issue for any coach that comes in. It's going to be kind of like a Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes situation where you have these two bright stars of the nation. I think the two biggest talents are Arda and Kenan, and then you got Semi behind that. And those two guys really, their ideal position is behind the striker. And I think that's going to be a little bit of a headache. And that's probably also one of the issues.
I've got a bit of a take there. Obviously you said Kenan and Arda are the main talents, and I think Semi showed that had a better account for himself in the 7 minutes he played than Kenan did the whole time.
I think that's harsh.
I'll say that's harsh because, look, there are 2 games. The first 2 games, granted, but where Kenan Yildiz showed such ability on the ball that I feel like, if I was a manager of a huge club in Europe, I'd be
I mean,
like,
he plays for a huge club
wow.
already, right? He plays for Juventus.
No, but I mean,
Yeah,
of course, yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean. If I'm scouting the Europa League, no. If I'm scouting the Euros and I'm looking for young talent, I'm looking at this kid. I'm like, okay, like he's look at what he's doing on the ball, and then
he didn't start these. He didn't play these Portugal though. He came on.
I think he meant against. He probably meant against Czech Republic.
Against Georgia and then against Czech Republic, or Czechia.
Czechia. We have to say Czechia now. That's true.
You guys are dated. No, I'm kidding. No, but I feel that he showed enough on the ball that, for me, it was apparent that he needed someone to play off of. We needed someone to play up in front for him to then finally, like, after he dribbles the three guys, like, what do you do next, right? And if it's yielded him kind of like running like
I think that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem that everyone kind of had this tournament, is that there wasn't anyone in the box because Barish was never there.
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
no focal
exactly.
point.
Yeah, and Barish doesn't have those instincts.
Even like against Austria in the first half against the Netherlands, we were playing some nice combination. The first half of both those games, we were playing some nice combination play in the midfield. You think something is going to happen, but there's no one there to receive that last ball. So it was a lot of nice play that didn't really result in anything, and that's because we had that lack of a focal point, a target man, like up front. Like if you have a Semi there or Alberto, even, or I mean Jenks. As much as I think Jenks had a terrible season for Besiktas, man, like. Seeing the few minutes he got in the Euros, I wouldn't say. I actually didn't think he looked very good against the Czech Republic until he scored.
No, he didn't. No,
like, the balls
I think there was one.
Off him.
There's that one ball over the top from Mert where I think you have Semi there, he gets on the end of it and he gets one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and Jeng didn't have the pace. Did you see that stat earlier that Cenk was the second fastest player on the Euros? Is that a fucking Photoshop or what was that? Was that legit?
I think it's just such a small anecdote, that like you can't.
I mean, if that's legit, like that's genuinely surprises me.
I actually think Cenk, as much as I think he's not the Cenk he was. I think he actually looked quite good against the Netherlands when he came on. Like. The way he was throwing his body about, like getting onto those. You see those crosses he got his head onto, man.
But you need to keep in mind as well, though, Kata. Like Cenk, I think is at a point in his career. First and foremost, he had the injury in the last season, but I think he's also at a point in his career where having a proper preseason camp is quite important, and he never had that, and he never really. Yeah, I don't think he was never 100% fit during the season.
Yeah, well, and despite that, I mean,
today actually maybe that could make a difference.
And despite all of that, like what I think Cenk kind of showed any certainly neutral observer, but obviously someone as invested in the strikers as we are, he revealed just a lack of a striker, right? Like, because he didn't do anything exceptionally well, but what he did was just like be where a striker needs to be and like provide a threat.
Exactly.
It was a phenomenal goal against the Czech Republic. Though that moment, the way he just kind of, I mean, he almost kind of dribbles a couple of guys and like kind of fakes them out.
That was a Simi.
Faked them out.
That's a goal that Simi scored a couple of times already this season. Like I think Simi scores that goal too.
They not score like a goal very similar to that against like Istanbulspor or something?
Yeah.
Here's a hot take. Here's a bit of a hot take, but I feel like in the game where Cenk scored, had it been Semi, he probably scores 2 or maybe even 3 goals, right? Because there's a few goals,
10 minutes,
a few opportunities.
I think
rather that like Cenk doesn't capitalize on because he's not, he's lacks that step where there was there was even an opportunity where he could have got his head on the ball, and we've seen that kind of all season, right? That like he's like that step behind the just
a step too slow. But what it is really is like, see in that game, the Czech Republic game, because they were 10 men and chasing the game, because obviously a draw was enough for us, but it wasn't for them. But see in that game towards the end, we had so many chances to break, but we just couldn't break. If you have a guy like Semi there that's like physically stronger than Jenkins, in better shape, like he's more on form, like then maybe those attacks, those opportunities have materialised into something. As Sinan said, instead of scoring 1 goal, maybe we score 3. Possible.
Yeah. Just that little additional athleticism, right? Anyway, and I think this is actually a perfect place to end all empty discussion with.
Agreed.
And Mario, shouts to you and Carlito. You guys have been great contributors here this episode. Not for nothing, and this is now Mario's words, the best moments from this tournament so far have been from the Turkish matches, Cenk's goal, Arda's goal, Mert's save. Sports Center here in the United States, as Ahmet and I kind of co-signed, definitely backed that theory.
That save especially, man. Like the world
the news
was
about
crazy about that save, man.
Watching the ESPN announcers trying to pronounce Mert Günok's name was a highlight.
No Uğurcan tweets after that one, right? Like you saw a lot of Uğurcan tweets after that first game against Georgia.
Get out of here.
No Uğurcan tweets after that one. And I think even like that save was almost, I think, more praised outside of Turkey than it was inside of Turkey. And you guys all know.
It was Golden Banks-esque.
Yeah.
No, and Cartel, you can probably back this claim of mine more than I can, but there was a lot of talk from the UK contingent of football Twitter regarding apparently some. I don't know the history of the Euro, but there was an English keeper that made a huge
Gordon
save,
Banks,
and Gordon Banks, and 67 or something, right?
I mean, someone for the Sun referred to it as the best save he's ever seen, and
that's Will Smith's uncle, right? Gordon Banks.
The Will Smith? I see what you're doing there.
Get it? Uncle Phil?
Uncle Phil.
I just want to add to what you were saying, Sinan, like, not just the US media, but the UK media were huge on us as well. Like, there was this girl on ITV, I think she's a female football player, and she was just talking about how exciting it would be in the whole tournament.
I feel like the anti-Turkish sentiment is more based in Germany and Austria,
and the Netherlands,
as well. Yeah.
I think I know why, but guys, because see, just when there's a high number of like immigration from a certain place there, like there tends to be more hatred towards them. Like in the UK, outside of London, there's not a lot of Turks here, man. Like, London has got a lot, but outside of London, there's not a lot of Turkish people in the UK. There isn't.
Well,
numbers are
relatively speaking.
And that backs the sort of like why, like,
I think it's also
the behavior could be way more open-minded.
The behavior of a couple
it's
of
probably
rotten
the same in
apples.
America as well. Seeing like comparatively to Central Europe, there's a lot less Turks in America, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's probably why we were looked at more favourably in the UK and the US. I mean, even my pal Kieran, one of my good friends, Kieran, he said that Turkey was his favourite team at the tournament to watch. So
I think a lot of people outside, like, it feels like I saw a tweet from a guy, and he was like saying why he was supporting the Netherlands. He was German. He's like, oh yeah, we're neighbors, and I know there's been a lot of rivalry, but I'm supporting you now. And I'm like in his comments, I'm like, dude, there's like millions of Turks living in your country that are fellow countrymen, and you don't support your own.
Like your literal neighbor.
Yeah, you're literal. You don't support them, but there's so much anti-Turkey sentiment in Germany, man. I looked up some numbers. Like, apparently there's like 20% unemployment among Turkish heritage people in Germany and stuff like that. Yeah, and like the extreme right people, they crick that up, they boop that up, and and obviously there's like if you saw, I don't know if you saw the footage from the Netherlands, like some guys, some Turkish guys, like rotten apples, I'm just gonna call them that because that's what they are. They're like, oh, fuck you Holland, you cancer, blah blah blah blah blah, and like fuck Netherlands. It's like, I mean, okay, I know you're in the heat of the moment and all that kind of stuff, but sorry guys, you're literally living in a country, you got the benefits of the country, you got the education opportunities there. Maybe you fucked it up, maybe you didn't make the most of your potential and yourself, but that's on you, man. Like, that's not on the system. And I understand, like, there's a lot of institutional racism in everything. Well, there's that.
I wanted to say, and Khan, actually, it was literally your words in our group chat that gave me an important perspective on exactly the point you're talking about. But as you mentioned, I mean, a lot of those people, I think, have endured so much Discrimination, but even like discrimination might feel like a strong word, but it's things like you say, right? Like if you're deciding between two people for a job, and one of them is like has a Dutch name and like, oh, that's like my neighbor, like you say, like even a German would view a Dutch person as that, versus someone with a Turkish name, maybe they'll get that job because
it's not just that. Like for example, like if you rent out an apartment, for example, and like the application and it's like an Arab name or something. Like, I understand that there's apprehensiveness, not just because it's an Arab. It's also like, how's the communication gonna go? How's that person's English? How's that, if he speaks Dutch, how's this person's Dutch? But even if he doesn't, like, how's that English? Like, Kim's been renting out her apartment and she's been renting mainly to Indian people, and the communication sometimes isn't great. Like with the Indians, actually, it's fine. But she had I think a Portuguese and a Spanish couple before that. And like they didn't speak any English, so there was always Google Translate and that kind of stuff, and that's not fun, like.
Sure.
So that's
sure.
So it's understandable, but it doesn't take away the experience that you have when you get turned down for a job, or you get turned down for this, or you get turned down for that, and like the questions you get, like the constant questions of, oh, you're Turkish, oh, you speak great Dutch, or you speak great English for somebody who's from another country, and you're like, dude, I was born here, man. Like, I have a different name, but I'm just as Scottish, or just as Dutch, just as Belgian, just as American as you are. You know what I mean? Like, and there's that. And some people, obviously, if you end up, I think, in a bad place in your life where you've got a lot of frustrations, then those frustrations go out towards all the negative experiences in your life, and then you lash out towards that kind of stuff. And it's it's a shame, but that's just deeply frustrated people.
No, I mean, the conversation that you guys have had about the kind of lived experience of Turks in Europe versus, the folks who are like native to wherever you're from, it's made me feel, I mean, on the one hand, very fortunate, I guess.
I think you also have the advantage of your last name, though, Sinan, because like you don't even.
Well, and I was about to say, I was literally about to say, no. I was on the one hand, I feel fortunate to be here because I think, as you also said, Khan, a lot of the Turks that come to the United States, like for example, my mother came here for her PhD. Our friend Ilke came here for his PhD. It's a because of how restrictive immigration is here, it's a very different caliber of human,
very different demographic
rate, right?
of people that move there. Whereas here in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in Germany, mainly those countries where there was the coal mining industry. Like the majority of people that came here were from little villages in Turkey, uneducated people. They deliberately selected those people. But that also brings with it that now you have a very large demographic that votes for Erdogan because they are all conservatives. No, they're conservatives. They're naturally conservatives because they're people from Konya, they're people from Sivas, they're people from Kayseri. They're not people from Izmir, Ankara, and Istanbul, largely.
Yeah, I mean, I think UK is more similar to America in terms of the immigration it takes from Turkey, like because we never needed Turkish workers to help rebuild the country or whatever, like they needed in Central Europe after the Second World War.
Massive thing in Germany, especially.
Especially Germany. Like the only way you can actually emigrate from Turkey to the UK is one of them is you have a skilled job, so you're educated and you've got a profession. Another one is if you come here and show a viable business plan, you can come and open a business. And the third one is you get married to a UK citizen,
like a certain guy from Chicago.
I mean that's how my dad came here as well. Like he came here.
But your dad married, had children, and is still there. He didn't marry and fuck off to Chicago, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's only 3 routes to staying here. So because of that, like just like America, like it's more of a more educated Turks are here compared to like the people that have came to Germany and the Netherlands and Belgium from rural areas.
Sure.
It's more people from like the bigger cities.
And I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with being from rural areas, of course, but
of course
but it does bring.
It's just a different demographic.
Exactly, and it brings along with it. Like, look, you have, let's say you have parents that they went to school until they were 10 years old. They came here. They only speak one language. Some of them may be very, very able to pick up languages quickly, but a lot of them maybe didn't. And then you stay in a bubble. You're living with in communities with lots of other Turks. So you're staying in a bubble there. So you start going to school. You have a language barrier. You don't do well in school, and then you create these. Plus, on top of that, I mean, look, your parents are probably not the most well off. They're working in the coal mine or whatever. And there's lots of people who made something out of themselves, and they started their own businesses, like their own kebab enterprises or Turkish cafes or restaurants. Well, lots of other things. Maybe some became doctors, whatever. But then also there's a lot of people who kind of got stuck in that lower, middle class to lower class. Financial situation, and there's a lot of frustration there, I think, and that's also in part because obviously when those people came to these countries, the local governments, they didn't do everything they probably should have to make sure those people integrated properly into society, because at the time they weren't really looking at it long term. They were looking at cheap labor.
Well, and there was probably some hostilities, right? Some racism, some other aspects too, but and look, I can only speak anecdotally, right? Like, as you commented on, Con, earlier, right? Like, my last name is Sporting. The way that I look, I have lighter skinned. What? No, lighter colored hair. Kind of almost blondish. It used to be blonder, but I almost have to bring attention to the fact that I'm Turkish for anyone to ever assume otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Now, that said, in the United States, there's a lot less of a sentiment about Turks in general, and they're kind of a rare, right? Because there's less volume, and
unless you're called Muhammad or Ahmet or something, like, they don't even realize you're a Muslim
there's
or
less
anything like
awareness.
that. I mean,
but I think the most logical thing to associate Turkishness in Europe with here would be Central Americans, right? And right, like, you're the largest demographic of a migrant worker, historically. Obviously lately it's changed because of serious conflicts, in North Africa and in Syria and whatever. But
in general.
But nonetheless, right, like, Turks are kind of stigmatized in a way that I think a lot of Central Americans are, and like, what's like, every episode I give these warnings about these construction sounds from my apartment. They're doing this work on the side of my facade and the balcony and all this stuff, and it's all of these workers who are working in, like, right now it's 100-degree heat, completely like over exhausted, overworked, not being given like basic workers' rights type thing. And like, everyone's like, oh, these Mexicans making noise in our neighborhoods. It's like, dude, like, they're making sure bricks don't fall off of the buildings onto you when there's like a strong gust of wind. Like, the work they're doing is vital, but their perception, all these Mexicans, like, and like, the majority of them are from like Guatemala. They're not from Mexico.
But that's the same. Right? That's the same here. Like, people. Like,
exactly.
People
like,
here,
all the Moroccans, all the Syrians, you're all Turks.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably,
they
right?
don't
like,
know the difference, man. Like, it's. Anyway, I think we should move on from this conversation.
Exactly. But, we're way off topic. But no, I mean, it's interesting. I think probably, like, for our listeners to understand our hosts and our Turkishness and like how that's perceived wherever we are. But and especially given the national team, right? Because it's such a thing on Twitter now. But like, I mean, let's leave it aside. Let's talk about
with the whole Turkish wolf thing. I think that kind of kickstarted, and that's also kind of how I rolled into, like. I said on Twitter the other day, like, I think I said it yesterday or today, I don't remember, like, I've been on Twitter since like 2010, and I've been largely in this football bubble where, like, you're more into like the politics and stuff like that, so like you're constantly talking about how Twitter's become a cesspool and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, I'm not noticing that, I'm just in my little football bubble over here, no problems. But then with the whole Turkish wolf thing, I tweeted about it, and oh man, I got so
it went so viral.
Like my mentions are full of so much like vitriol and toxicity, and it's like also like so many people like who I know haven't got a fucking clue, because they're literally comparing it to like the Sieg Heil from the Nazis and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? You have no like this is like some like almost like a buzzword that some guy said, and then everyone starts using it. It's the exact same thing with like the social media. Like one guy had this ridiculously completely abstract opinion, and like all the little internet trolls started copying that opinion and started taking it as fact, like it's fucking Sieg Heil. No, it's not Sieg fucking Heil, man. Like, and I hope we don't get thrown off YouTube for this, but it's not the same thing. Like, it's not. Like, I understand. Like, there's a lot of like and this is like with a lot of cultural symbolism, like extreme nationalists grasp onto cultural symbolisms. Because why? Extreme nationalists?
Because they do it.
Because no, but they are extreme nationalists, so they
show that they are patriotic.
Yeah, they try to clamp onto everything like that. So they like the wolf, the wolf, Turkish wolf thing is something that, you know, goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, and only in the
before Turkey existed, which is crazy.
Exactly.
Because like how can it be nationalist, right?
Yeah.
Ultra nationalist, like violently nationalistic, when it's a concept that predates the nation that you're claiming,
and it's something
that it's nationalistic.
It's something that
it's a Turkic thing.
Exactly,
right?
it's something that all people of the Turkish race, so to speak, do. Yeah, exactly. Like the Azeris, the Turkmens, the Kazakhs, you know, they all do it.
Kyrgyz.
Yeah, Kyrgyzstan, all of them do it. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I understand. Like, for if you're an Armenian and you live and you have like your family, you have like distant family that, you know, died in 1920 something. I understand that is a very hard. Like anything nationalistic Turkish, I understand that's difficult for you. I understand that. I understand if you're Kurdish and your family got mistreated by extreme nationalists in Turkey. I completely understand that is a very tough subject for you. But like, I'm sorry, like for those people, and I understand why, but for those people, anything Turkish is offensive. Like, wave a Turkish flag and they'll be offended, and it's understandable. Like, it's the same thing. Like, it's the same thing. If you're Jewish, you're probably not too fond of Germany, right? Like, if you had people, if you had ancestors that got killed in the concentration camps, you're probably not too fond about the Germans. And there's a lot of Nazi, you know, Germans get called Nazis all the time, even though not all Germans obviously are Nazis. And that's the same thing with Turks. Like, not all Turks that use that wolf, that gesture, are extreme nationalists. Like, they clamped onto it, but they don't own it.
This is so important. What you're saying is that, like, the vast majority of criticism has not come from Armenians or Kurds, right? It's come from people who have no connection to this stuff and who are just kind of projecting.
They do have lobbies, though. They do have lobbies, and I do think those lobbies fuel that a little bit. For sure.
But
I mean, I understand it from their perspective.
And the hypocrisy, though, but Khan, and the hypocrisy that I think you're sort of speaking to is there were a lot of far right folks in Europe who were using this as a chance to kind of dogpile on Turks.
That is the funny thing, though. Like
right, and how hypocritical. Like, first of all, and what is wild to me though is that this is an international football tournament, meaning that de facto it's going to be nationalistic. People are literally waving flags, wrapping flags around themselves. This is. You go out and you sing the national anthem, and people put their freaking hand on their heart and they recite the lyrics. Like, this is a nationalistic event by definition.
I think the best comparison you can make is the 3-finger gesture that the Serbs make. And if you look at history, the most recent genocide in Western Europe is in 1996, committed by Serbian nationalists. And they used that finger gesture. That finger gesture, if I'm not mistaken, was used at the Euros by, I think, Dusan Tadic after the game.
Yeah, and then
after a game, he got a monetary fine. I think that's fine. I think giving him a fine. If your stance as UEFA is no political signature, and if you do, you get a monetary fine. Okay, that's fine. Fine. Give Mary a fine, but they gave him a 2-match ban.
Yeah, they went against the president.
Yeah.
But also, what is the 3 thing represent
That's
for
just
Serbians?
that's just a national. That's just a national. That's just a proudness of being Serbian.
I
It's
thought it
the
had
exact
something to
same
do-
meaning as the wolf.
I thought it had something to do with like Kosovo and like something being like part of Serbia, which is so much more political though.
Yeah,
than,
no, but like,
then my point is being that actually.
But the thing is, like, if you look up the 3-finger gesture on Wikipedia and you read the English description of it, you could replace that I don't even remember what it's called. You could replace that word with Turkish wolf, and it's the exact same thing, exactly verbatim,
right?
the same thing.
I thought the Turkish wolf was more of a Remus and Romulus.
Yeah,
kind
of course.
Like
the Turkish wolf goes
fairy
back.
tale about
Goes
the
back.
inception.
It has as far longer mythology and as goes back much further. But at the essence of it, it's a symbol of nationalistic pride of being Turkic. And that's the same thing with the 3-finger gesture, is being proud of being Serbian.
And so, but so not nationalistic, because that's ethnic, right? Turkey.
Yeah.
Is not,
I guess you could say ethnic. Yeah.
Right, which is,
Yeah.
And again, that differentiation, right? You can't call it ultra nationalistic. That's where I'm kind of like, what are we even fucking doing here? Like, and again, I personally, and I want this on the fucking record. I'm never waving the wolf sign around, just because I understand what it signifies, and granted, I'm in the United States. I'm surrounded by Armenians. Right, I'm far more aware of how they perceive that stuff. I would be much more worried about like offending them.
Of course, yeah, I understand that completely. I think it's fine. Like I'm of a similar mindset. Like I don't think it should offend people. However, I understand if it does, and I'm not one of those people that is just gonna do something just because I can and like fuck it if you're offended. Like, that's like, what's the point of offending people on purpose? There's no point to that, in my opinion. Like, that's just being an ass. But like Mary, I think he probably should have known better, but he also isn't a German Turk. He's a Turkish Turk. Like,
and he might not have known better, right? Like, this is an important point. We've highlighted this a few times throughout the our podcast tenure, but like professional athletes in general are not academics, right? They're not the most well-read. They don't know the full context of a lot of these things, and so to expect them to kind of like pass your
and unless you're like
of a pure test, whatever it is, like they might not know.
And unless you're of Kurdish descent or you're Alevi or something, I don't know if do you think that most like the average Turk knows how offensive that is to some people?
I don't know, because we have an Alevi in the group, who kind of like I would never have even known that a wolf gesture had any significance to Turks without literally being told by, I think it was Ilke or whatever. But like, I mean,
Ilke's not Alevi, Yusuf is.
Yeah, Yusuf is.
Maybe it was, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Emre used to be as well. I mean, obviously, Emre Can as well. But
yeah, Emre Can, he's Alevi as well. Yeah.
That's what it was. It was Emre Can. That's what it was. But yeah, like I would never have even known what a wolf was, much less a gray wolf, because it's like such a, even politically, kind of
that's
niche.
the thing though. Like, a lot of people use it without being a grey wolf, without being a member of the Bozkurt or a sympathizer of the Bozkurt party, like the MHP. Like, these are, like, I think most CHP voters use it as well. Like, even I think
Kemal
he used it,
well.
exactly, yeah. And isn't he Alevi? I think he's Alevi. Yeah, he's Alevi. So
like,
he's Alevi, yeah. It's one of those. It's one of those things. Like, lots of people use it, and it's like some ultranationalists, they have grasped onto it, but they don't own it. And it's like, I told one guy who compared it to the Hitler greeting. I said to him, look, it's not like Turks were running around in Hugo Boss outfits with a wolf on their on their arm patch, making that gesture, and then killing 6 million people in concentration camps, right? Like,
No, yeah. You know, the more apt, I think, comparison is probably the American eagle, right?
Yeah.
The eagle, which is it's an animal which they've sort of like mythologized to represent their values for whatever it means.
Yeah.
And like, you
And
know,
I'm
they'll
not-
do the people like people wear the eagle shirt. It's not by any means offensive.
And I'm no expert
to
on,
be like,
on
oh,
the
I support him.
Armenian genocide, but you know, the people that marched those Armenians into the desert to their deaths, and all that, I doubt they did it while sticking up their hands and having a wolf patch on their arm. Like
I'm sure they did it with a gun,
1920.
you know?
You know, that's not like they compare it to the Nazis, but the Nazis were all about symbolism and this and this and that. Like, it's not the same. Like, you can't compare it. Like, show me the footage of 1920, you know, pictures of 1920 when they were doing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, 1923 or whatever. It's like there's so much documentation on the Nazis and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, yeah, there are MHP fundamentalists, I'll call them, or nationalist extremists that did atrocious things and killed people, even in recent history, and used that hand gesture. But like I said, it predates those people by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And then you've got...
Well, just like you have school shooters in the U.S. who have the American eagle like emblazoned into their gun and stuff.
Exactly.
Like, you know, that doesn't mean that they represent everybody who like has the USA with a freaking eagle t-shirt on it, right? Like,
and then you have those people who are like, a sign that used to mean something else suddenly blah blah blah, like you're obviously referring to the swastika, but that's again comparing apples to oranges. You know, the swastika was an Indian symbol for peace or whatever, and
which they just
which meant absolutely nothing in Germanic culture, and they just liked it, ripped it off, and used it to their own. Like, it's not the same thing. Like, the wolf has a very long history in Turkish mythology. Like, it's not the same. The people who are making those comparisons have zero clue. They haven't done a shred of research, and they're just yelling a lot of stupid stuff. And I'm fine if you're Armenian or you're Kurdish and you have genuine gripes and you have things to say about it, 100% fine with that. But if you're German and you have no fucking clue about it, if you're Dutch and you have no fucking clue about it, if you're French and you have no fucking clue about it, and you're just yelling stuff, you're just being you're just looking for something to be outraged about, go do something better with your life, seriously. And that's the thing. What I think is really sad about the UEFA is that they showed again their true colors here, with where they just bend the knee for this kind of crap. Like, the fact alone that Bild knew the decision 24 hours or something before the defense was even presented. How sad is that? That is just so sad. And then
it speaks to the
and then
problem,
ultimately
really.
they didn't even ban Mary based on racism or anything like that. They banned him on a different article in their rule book where it was behavior unbecoming of a sportsman and discrediting football. Come on, dudes.
Crazy.
Come on. Cathal, is there anything you want to say about this? Because I've been rambling.
I mean, I don't think the punishment on Mary was fair.
No.
But at the same time, I think he's an idiot.
Oh,
for
yeah,
doing it,
yeah.
'cause
I agree.
Do you want me to be honest? Like, see, the second I saw that photo, I said to my wife, "Oh, he's going to get banned." I knew it was going to happen. And then the next morning, the news came out, "Oh, UEFA's investigating it." And then the day after that, it's like the
that also shows the hypocritical nature of UEFA is that they also investigated Jude Bellingham, and then they gave him a 1-match suspension, conditional,
for grabbing his balls, right?
Yeah, it was a suspended 1-match suspension. So basically, he's suspended a match later on down the line. Not a major film.
I mean, look, I don't think he should have gotten suspended. And then you also have the idiots like the Turks on the other flip side of the medallion, like using Weghorst's lion claw as, oh, why didn't he get suspended? It's like, oh my god, you don't get it.
Here we go.
Like,
here we go. You're doing the same thing.
like you're being
you
just
are UEFA in that.
Yeah.
It's a double standard though, but is that not a national sign of the Netherlands? The lion claw.
No, yeah,
The
it
lions?
is a double standard, but like you're then kind of following. You're applying the double standard to your own logic then by saying that they should be
Yeah,
banned.
but you could
right?
say, for example, if this is
If
fine, this
then,
should be
if
fine.
one, then B. Yeah, if A, then B,
Yeah.
or something. I guess. Yeah.
So if you say if this is fine, this should be fine, and then that would be that.
I don't think
there's anything
I think
wrong
if
saying
Turkey used the wolf more prominently in like their
guess like a
badge
less
and stuff like
prominent
that, if they would have
Like the English
Exactly.
lion, right? Or
I think
fucking like the U.S. eagle.
yeah, I
Lions.
think if Turkey would if even the national team, if just the Turkish national team used it more prominently, I think it would be more acceptable probably, because then you can make, but yeah, obviously not anymore, but then if they would have been doing it for like 30 years or something, I think then you can definitely say, well, look.
But then that's the irony too, though, Con, is that like it's not really a national symbol, right? It's an ethnic symbol, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, like in a way, it can't apply in the same way. It can't become the norm because it's not ultranational. I mean, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It's done. The tournament's over. But that was definitely annoying, and it was especially because as I think fans of the Turkish national team, I guess, right? Like to see Mehdi Demiral finally recapture his form as a footballer,
Yeah.
right? After going to
Post-injury.
Saudi and kind of falling apart career-wise, he
Yeah.
refound what had like made him who he was, and then got suspended right when
Yeah.
we needed him.
I mean,
So,
I
Yeah.
for sure I was very down on Meri because I think he's been horrible ever since his
for a
ACL
couple
injury.
years,
This was the best
Yeah.
Meri I've seen. This was pre-injury Meri. Like, this was prime Meri we saw, and then he
Phenomenal.
got suspended.
Yeah, and that pre-injury version of Mehdi Demiral, we all thought he'd be a top defender in Europe, and he was on the verge of being one. They better signed him.
Yeah,
It was
and he
going
was
great.
playing.
I mean, I
he was
remember,
playing ahead of Matthijs
yeah, and
de
I
Ligt.
remember and I remember the game he tore his ACL. I was actually watching it. I was on a bus going from Antalya to Kütahya, and it was like January 2020. He tore his ACL, and he just could never recover from that. It was never the same again. He did have I remember he did have one very good game for Atalanta against Man U. He scored a goal, and then he had a beautiful chase down slide tackle on Ronaldo. But obviously, he wasn't consistent enough there either, and that's why after being sold from Juventus to Atalanta, he was sold to Saudi.
Hot
from
take
there.
though, guys. Like, there's been rumors that his Saudi club would tear up his contract. If they were to do that, would you take him?
Yeah, I would.
Oh, wait,
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
the
if it
question
doesn't
is
pay
that
out, put him on the bench, right? Like he's a Turk.
he's not really the type of guy we need. Is
No, he's not.
but would you take him, Casal?
I would just take him for depth anyway,
Of,
right?
course,
Like,
of course, in a heartbeat, man. But I think, for example, see if you want to partner him with like a Hummels, I think that'd be perfect. Or someone else that's like a good ball playing centre back. Like even like a Montero, like the type of profile Montero is, if you put him with a Demiral, man, it'd be a very good pair.
I want to close off this national team chapter though.
move
Yeah,
on.
I want to ask one more
'cause
question though.
a playmaking centre defender, Gabriel Paulista. All right, sorry, friendly. We're already on the
question.
bench.
So,
Yeah.
and then
Go
we
ahead.
close the Turkish national team chapter. Cenk Tosun, has he, in the limited time he played at the Euros, shown you guys enough to convince you that he deserves another contract? I've been saying consistently, I'd like him to stay as long as it's as second, third striker. I'd like him to stay. How are you guys feeling about it now that his contract is officially expired? Do you want Beşiktaş to sit down with him and hash out a deal? Yes or no?
In answer to your question, his performance at the Euros did not sway me one way or the other, just because it was,
Too limited.
you know, a
Sure,
moment.
maybe.
He gave us a moment. But I would, if he, I'm not willing to I'm actually mildly critical of the fact that we offered Salih as much money as we did, given the fact that he was as injured
Did
as
any
he was.
news come
But
out
I
about that though? Like, I have no clue how much money he's on.
Didn't we actually? I thought we re-signed Salih. Didn't we? Cartel, you might know this officially. Didn't we officially re-sign him?
We officially
No,
re-signed
he
him.
is signed, but Can's referring to the money. There was no official statement about that, but it's the ballpark is about $900,000 a year, I think. Roughly.
Okay, so we
There's no
stayed below
official
$1 million at least. Like that was an important thing. I mean, the key was that I felt like neither one of them merited a pay raise, right? And both of them were asking for that.
I mean, they were both on ridiculously low money though. Like Salih was making like,
but
I think Salih wasn't even on 300K though. That's.
But have they earned? Like, did they do anything that was like, oh, but like we need to make sure that we keep them around? Like it's really like
no,
a luxury.
I mean, yeah, but like
Both.
I understand you give Salih a pay bump. Like 300K is insultingly low.
Sure.
You know?
Well, and Salih at least like performed in some.
Yeah. And he could legitimately go and play for any Anadolu team and make double that. So I understand that, you know. And the same is true for Cenk. Cenk is on like $500,000. You know, that's a low amount.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you should get 1.5, but I think if you give him like 700 or 800 or 900 even, like.
I'd give him 750K, but
yeah, no more than that, man.
Cathal, has he swayed you at all? Like, do you want to keep him? Do you want him to stay? Do you want him to see his career out at Besiktas, or are you not really fussed?
I think the romantic in me would love him to finish his career at Besiktas. Do I think we need him? I don't. I think if the money's right, he can stay though. If it's 500, 600K, he can stay. But I think any more than the 750 Sinan mentioned, I don't think we should re-sign him, no. But the romantic in me would love to see him finish his career at Besiktas because he's been a great servant to the club. He's a great character. I think he's a good person as well. From obviously we don't know him personally, but from what we can see, the way he carries himself in the media, the way he talks and stuff like that, seems like a good guy as well. So I would like him. I would like to see him finish his career at Besiktas, but I don't think we need him. But yeah, if the money's right, he can definitely stay.
Okay. Well, let's move on then from the Turkish national team. A question in the chat was Carlito asked if Semih Kılıçsoy isn't taking a holiday and he's already back.
Apparently
I
not.
don't think so.
No, he will take a holiday.
Yeah, I think he will. Yeah,
I would
don't
argue
think
that I would argue that his little stint at the Euro was basically a holiday. He took a
No,
central.
it definitely wasn't. Like he's still there every day training.
No, of course.
There was.
I'm obviously more mocking Montella when I say that.
There was a social media video today on Beşiktaş social media that Semih went to visit the club, but he was in street clothes. I think that should have given it away. I think he was just there
while they were all training.
I think he was just there to
meet
meet the coach. And just say hello, and then he's definitely gonna go on vacation now for like a week or so. Maybe I hope not much longer than that.
2 weeks.
2 weeks is.
And
if I was Semih, I would take a very short vacation. I think he is. I mean, look, he's 18 years old. He can afford to skip a 2-week vacation. I think he needs to make sure he's 100% ready for the new season. That he's ready to fire on all cylinders, hit the ground running. So if I was him, I would be there when the team goes to Slovenia.
Good night, Mario. I saw your comment, by the way. I would just add that he didn't appear at the facilities with Mert Gunak or Cenk.
Yeah.
So that kind of reinforces what you're saying, right? He was probably just stopping by and saying hello.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're not starting officially yet. I don't know.
That's what happened. They'll get at least, I think, 7 to 10 days off. 10 days, I think, is probably close to what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you're saying that you want him in Slovenia, but you need to bear in mind, we're going to Slovenia in it's almost
days,
a day from now because it's the tentative camp stuff.
That's why if I was
no, it's we're going on Wednesday.
if I was Semih, I wouldn't take a
No, Saturday is the next.
I wouldn't
Sunday,
take a vacation at all. I'd like, first of all, it's massive PR, and second of all, I think just this is gonna be a pivotal season for him in his career. So unless obviously he's moving abroad, but if this is gonna be his confirmation season at Besiktas, he needs to fire at all cylinders. Like, I mean, we were talking about this earlier. I think one of our friends asked whether Simi would be a starter or should be on the bench, because that's the sentiment living among the fandom. I think a lot of people right now are seeing Rafa Silva, and they're seeing names like Ciro Immobile. They're seeing names like Sebastian Haller. They're seeing lots of names, and they're seeing wingers. So they're in their minds. Like if you look at some of the lineups fans are making, a lot of those lineups don't include Simi. And I think it's very important that Simi, first and foremost, he needs to be in the line. He needs to be in the first 11. He needs to be a key player this season. But he also needs to earn that. Like, I think if he plays the way he played the last 2 months of the season, like, he wasn't great. And, he wasn't bad, but he was nowhere near the level he was at between December and March. And if he isn't able to recapture the form he was in between December and March, then there's going to be people calling for a different player in January. So Simi needs to be fire. Yeah, he needs to be on the ball. He needs to be on the top of his game, and he needs. Obviously, he's an 18-year-old player, so he's not going to be 100% consistent. It's just not possible to expect that from an 18-year-old. I think he's gonna have lesser games. We were talking about Rafa. Like, he has those games. When we were talking to Anna, she was saying like he has this on and off switch. So like lots of players have that. Yeah. Not everyone plays. And there's very few players that are consistent like Lionel Messi, right? But still, like Simi is gonna need to. Yeah, I think the least. Obviously, he needs a little bit of holiday because you need to decompress. You need to. On one side, you need the holiday, but on the other side, I think for Simi, being 18 years old, being where he's at in his career, I think it's important for him to be super fit at the start of the season.
I was gonna say, Simi needs what he needs. If he feels the need to like go into the facilities and just keep running, by all means, kid, like do what you got to do. Like I think his body can. He's young enough that his body can withstand whatever he wants it to. It's a matter of mentality and. Obviously you don't want to push it, but I think we have, trainers in place to make sure he doesn't do that, right? Like, I have no problem with him training with the team. I think that it shows fantastic desire on his part.
I think it would be great for his PR, and PR is very important in today's football. That's just the way it is. Look at Jude Bellingham. Like his career is, he's a fantastic football player, of course, but like he is. The brand he is because he has a fantastic PR team around him as well.
No doubt.
I think that's something like if we want to sell Simi, like him building out a proper PR team is not a bad idea.
No, not at all. But with all that in mind, like I, as much as I'd be sad to not be able to watch him kind of develop a little bit more, every week, a part of me would be pretty happy to see him get that big move this summer, just because he'd have to be he could get rid of like the pressure and the sort of nonsense that we're talking about, or like people being like, oh, he shouldn't even play, we need like a starter to play over him, like that feels ridiculous.
But I mean,
like, he's
at the same time, if you look
decades,
what he did this season with limited quality around him, like he should be able, like imagine having. Obviously, in the second half of the season, he had some more help from I want to say Laic, Ernest Mucci, and then also Musrati. But Musrati didn't play all that much though. Let's remember that as well. So obviously, there's a little bit more quality in the second half of the season. But then, of course, as well, like he played the majority of his time without Amir, without Ox. Like he started playing in a period of the season where the quality in the team was so low, and he was still able to stand out and put the team on his back at times and carry us. If he can do that in such a poor team, like imagine what he could do in a decent side,
Yeah, that's how I feel for sure. No, there should be no question marks about his role with Besiktas, and the fact there are makes me feel like he should go.
Yeah,
he should go somewhere where
he should definitely start. But I think it could be good for him and us if he's sold as well for us, because we'd get a lot of money for it, and for him, he could go to a club that would be better for his development and help him take that next step. And I think because we could build like the money that we're anticipated to receive from him, you could build like a good half of the team, like almost a full team with that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so I think for us it'd be very beneficial if we could get say 30 million for him, and for him it would be more beneficial as well, because it'd probably help him play in the national team for a start, and also I think if he goes to a good European club, it'll be better for his development as well.
I was that's such a key point, because I was so critical of Arda Güler going to like Real Madrid too soon for his career. He's not going to get playing time, etc., etc., etc. But then you saw with the national side this summer, the value of him training with a top quality side, like, was so clearly reflected in his capacity, right, to like basically lead the national side as a 18, 19.
Gave him a lot of confidence. I think, and, you know, the ability, I think, to say to a guy like Hakan Çalhanoğlu, no, I got this.
I got this now. I'll take this free kick. Back up. No, it's so important, and that's where I think maybe Semi would just benefit from just being on a professional side, you know, regardless of whether he'd be playing like, you know, week in, week out. Anyway, but that.
Although I do think if he is playing every week and he's scoring goals and he's giving assists and all that, and he's playing for a Beşiktaş that is competing with Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe and aren't 50 points behind, I think it's a lot harder to bench him then. I think it was, and that's, you know, like if he would have played if he would have kept his form from December, March right until the end of the season, and he scored instead of 12 goals, 18 goals, and he scores a goal in the cup final, and he scores maybe a goal against Fenerbahçe, against Galatasaray, and you know, if he would have done that, I think then also different situation right now. I think then you're in the position where Montella just would not be able to bench him at all, you know. But he wasn't like in French they call it incontournable. It means that you make yourself, you cannot be ignored, essentially. And I think that Semi was a little bit shy of that. And with
I think between December and March he was that though, and it was after what happened with Montella that he saw that dip in form. So, I mean, obviously he could have been stronger mentally. He could argue and just kept on going. But it's hard for
that's only a 4 or 5 month period though. That's not, and you have to keep in mind there's like the winter break in there. Like that is not. That's a small sample size. I think if you now go and you like from August to the new year and he scores 12, 13, 14 goals. I think then you're at a point where, okay, this kid can no longer be ignored. Like, you just cannot.
Yeah.
You'll literally lose your job if you do. You know what I mean? Guys, there was some... I know he's gone now, but Mario was asking for us to talk a little bit about the rumors in the media circulating right now. So we've got
I was wanting to talk about that.
So there's a bunch of rumors.
So we mentioned... we mentioned Amarte and Obbs being left out of the squad for the training camp. We both thought it was a bit strange, but obviously if we can offload them, that'd be great as well. So first, what we'll just start off with, Can, is Ciro Immobile, many outlets in Italy, and then
Ciro.
Sorry, you know, Dries Mertens' son is called Ciro. And at Napoli, Dries Mertens, his nickname was Ciro, and that's why he named his son that.
Interesting.
I think that's gonna be I think Immobile is gonna be the biggest discussion. So I would say let's start off with Okay Yokuşlu to kind of finish as well. Like still a little bit of the Turkish national team. So Okay Yokuşlu obviously being linked to Beşiktaş now as well, alongside of somebody who's been linked for a longer time, Salih Özcan. So Okay is now being linked, and supposedly already there's a personal agreement. At least some people are saying that Murat Özen, Ertan Süzgün, but then I think Yaz Sabuncuoğlu came out with news from Okay's agent denying that. But you know, the links are there. Okay Yokuşlu. Let's start with that. Sinan, how do you feel about Okay potentially joining Beşiktaş?
Yes, please. I'll take
So
him.
you're okay with Okay?
I'm okay with Okay. No, like look. I mean, he's a Turk, right? And he's probably starting caliber. And like the obvious, the issue with it is like, do you need him and Musrati? I mean, look. Supposedly, we're already getting offers for Musrati, in excess of 20 million. If you can bring in an Okay Yokuşlu and sell him and make a ton of money, like
very different times, right? Like.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd honestly kind of prefer the Moose at this point. I like how he's settling in. I like his style of play. He might be injury prone. Okay Yokuşlu offers a degree of physicality that we don't have.
But he's not just a.
Part of me wonders.
He's not just a breaker.
Could you convert Okay Yokuşlu to like a central defender? Like I feel like he's so tough.
Played at 20.
Right, like he could probably become a starting central defender if you wanted to play him and Musrati at the same time, or I don't think you can convert either one of them to an 8. But
why don't we just play with 3 6s?
Yeah.
France does it.
Or we play with the 3-man back line. He could be in the middle, or whatever it is. But I don't know about that. But no, I don't think when you have the capacity to bring in that level of talent, regardless of whether he can start immediately or he's for depth, or you have to change your tactics, whatever it is, I don't see why not. Yeah, bring him in.
What about you?
I think, Okay Yokuşlu, he's a very good number 6. He's been playing for West Brom for a few years now. Impressed a lot there. I think he's a good player. Last year, I was crying out for him because last year, obviously, Joseph left in January. Atiba retired at the end of last season, and the only 6 we had was Amir Hadjiahmetovic, and I was crying out for Okay, saying, look, that'd be a great signing. Great for the fact that we needed 3 Turks on the pitch. But I think now, a year later, we don't really need him as much. You've got Al Musrati, a top-class number 6. You've got Amir as his backup. I do think you could use an Okay to maybe be a sub number 6, a sub centre back, or if there's games you wanted to be super defensive, maybe in Europe, you play a double pivot, him and Musrati together. I think there is a use case for him there, but I think we should focus on filling out the starting 11 first.
I was going to say that. Yeah, he's not a priority.
Focusing on the priorities before, but if there's money left at the end of the window, I think then you make a move for an Okay. But I think just now we've got too many spaces to fill to be focused on Okay Yokuşlu just now.
Okay. I think Okay is the type of player that, like you say right now, maybe on paper, you don't need him that much. I think if he comes, he's a player that's going to play a lot. I think you're going to be surprised about how much he's going to play then. I think he's the type of player, first and foremost, that will fight his way into the team. I think he has a great mentality. I've been a fan of his since he was at Kayseri. When you were calling out for him last season, I was like, yeah, I'd love him, but no way. There's just no way. We can't afford him. I think that was true at the time. Now, obviously, with the new board, there's more money. I think it would be great. And I also think, if you want to make a serious run for trophies, you need squad depth and you need quality squad depth. You don't just need bodies there. You can have players of the quality of Onur Bulut as squad depth, but then you have a massive drop-off if you go from your first choice to your second choice, and then the quality difference is felt immediately and massively. I think if you can have a guy like Okay Yokuşlu for rotation, it's massive. I wouldn't say leave it until the end. I think if there's an opportunity to sign him for acceptable terms, you do it. It's a no-brainer. I think you do it.
Yeah. It's not a priority, though. You would agree with that?
On paper, no, but I think that's the type of player that when you bring him, he's gonna be in 6 months' time, you're gonna be like, oh my god, I'm so happy we got him.
And I guess, Kartal, regarding a priority or whatnot, I mean, I think you have to assume that we've lined up so many options for strikers, for central defenders. The key positions. We've done our due diligence, right? You'd hope. We're already in talks with a couple guys, so, you should be able to kind of, walk and chew gum at the same time, right? You got to be able to check off the priority boxes, but also depth, right? In this world of football that we live in today, depth is in some ways as important as checking off your priorities, right? I mean,
walk
that's
and
a
chew
whole other
gum at the
debate,
same
but
time. That's a great one, Sinan.
There you go.
All right.
So
The next one then, Felix Udukai, I think, 26-year-old left-footed central defender from Augsburg.
I'm just going to cut on Felix because the second name's too hard to say.
I'll say one thing about him. Already, I've heard people be like, "Oh, I don't know if we should bring him in since we didn't bring in Hummels, who's better on the ball, better passer, and whatnot." I will say, if anyone watched the friendly, and I don't know if we're going to talk about the friendly this week or maybe we'll save it for next week.
We can talk about it. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
whatever.
There's not much. I mean, just.
I
I think you're gonna talk about
so,
that amazing
thanks so
long
much.
ball, the amazing ball.
Gabriel Paulista, he might be our man on the ball. I don't know. Like, he's a hell of a passer.
I mean,
right?
he gave one really
thought
good
you'd make
pass.
note of it,
Yeah.
Con.
Yeah. But like, what is one
It's
pass?
a beauty.
Right?
It's a beauty.
I'm sure Coley gave the occasional great pass, but.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
This is actually a guy that
Certainly
was
Montero had.
rated extremely highly a couple of years ago, but I think he had some injury issues the last couple of seasons. Like the previous, not this season, but the 2 seasons before that, he missed like half a season in both those seasons. So that kind of got him to drop a little bit in the pick order, I guess, of highly coveted central defenders from the Bundesliga. But this season he played an entire season. Katla, I know you did some looking into his stats. You weren't super impressed with it, but I do think you need to keep.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not that he's. I don't think he's going to be bad. I think he's a good defender from what I've read. But the question is he the type of player that we need? Like, I mean, you look at the defending stats. There's some very good ones there. He's Jules one. He's one of the best in the German league. The aerial Jules one again.
But
very
those,
rarely is dribble past. One of the best.
Those
in
are
the
really
league.
important in the Turkish league, though.
Yeah,
those are really important.
Yeah, and of course, like, and Khan is. It's not that I think he's like, from what I've read, he seems like a fine player, like good, tall, strong defender, very strong defender, really. But I do think we need a guy that's known to be a good ball playing defender, because being able, especially in the modern game, having a defender that's good with the passing is very important. To be able to start attacks, to be able to recycle the ball, to make sure we keep the ball. It's very increasingly important in the modern game. Gabriel Paulista, we've not seen enough of him. But the scouting, the scout type they call him on Twitter. They all say that Paulista's got decent feet, but he's not like a proper defender like a
Hummels is like the upper echelon of that. Like, you don't need that in Turkey, man. Like, obviously, if you have it, it's amazing. But like, you need to keep in mind, Gabriel Paulista is somebody who played his entire career almost either in La Liga or in the Premier League. Like, he's not gonna be Colli. With all due respect, I love Colli, but he's not gonna be Colli.
Yeah, And they did say they did all those the kind of Twitter scouts.
Marcelo.
That's what you should have heard of.
Marcelo.
They all said
was considered to be a bad ball playing centre back. The Dutch fans that saw him at PSV, even the people in Germany considered him to be a bad ball-playing centre-back. And I think he was one of the better ones we've had.
Yeah, but I think he had a bit of development later on, because even I remember watching him at Lyon and thinking he still looked very good with the ball at his feet.
I think it depends a lot on the team you play for. If you play for Hanover, it's not the same thing as you play for Lyon or if you play for Besiktas. And obviously I know,
of course.
And I think that's the thing with, like, obviously I don't know Felix Udukai. I think it's a great name, by the way. Reminds me of the Urukai from Lord of the Rings.
I was saying Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. But like, look, I mean, I think it's a little dangerous to look too much at those stats. You need to also keep in mind that Augsburg is one of the lowest teams in terms of ball possession in the entire Bundesliga. I think they were like the 3rd lowest in the Bundesliga last season with like 43% ball possession average. Like, you need to keep that in mind. And also, like, the passing game, like, he had a lot of long balls. I saw like over 100, which is not extreme, but it's a lot. It's more than Colli. Colli had like 50 something. And like, you also need to keep in mind, like, who do you have running on those wings to receive those balls, and how good are they at receiving the balls? Like, it's not always a ball can be good, but if the person who's supposed to receive it isn't quick enough or doesn't have the technique or whatever, like, that's all factors that play into it. So I think it's a little dangerous to over-analyze numbers without watching a player, you know?
And look, Con, if we're going to analyze numbers, I think it's probably worth noting that this dude is almost 10 years younger than Hummels. So as far as, like, speaking of numbers, right, the finances of things, resale value, right, there's a far greater chance that you could get a good
plus
year
a
or two out of this guy and sell him for
26-year-old
good money.
central defender that is not prime yet. Like, central defenders usually hit their prime 28, 29, 30 years old, so he's not like the.
So if he has a good year, 26.
No, you can have 2 good years and then still make a big move. Like, if you.
We could make
like,
a lot
like
of
I
money,
said, like
theoretically, right?
I think he was on like the UEFA's top 100 or top 50 players in 2020 or something, like, young players. So, like, he was highly rated a couple of years ago before he started having some injury issues. So, I mean, look, I don't know the player. If you are if you're a German Besiktas fan and you watch a lot of Bundesliga, or you're just like somebody who watches a lot of Bundesliga and you caught some Augsburg games, let us know what you thought of Felix Udukai, because we don't know.
Yeah, hit up the chat.
Yeah, or just let us know on Twitter or something.
Yeah, we don't know much, but I think we could all agree that it is quite disappointing when you've got this expectation of Mats Hummels, and we know that the profile we are looking for is a ball-playing centre-back. And then it kind of falls to this guy instead, who seems to be a different profile. But he does seem to be a good centre back as well. So you don't think it's that?
But Cartel, if you're more interested in, like, bigger names who are slightly older, surely then, like, Di Maria.
I don't really care about you guys know me. I don't really care about the name. It's more the profile. If we signed this great up and coming ball playing centre back, or someone that seemed to have potential, that's a good ball playing centre back, I'd be all for that as well. In fact, I'd probably be more excited about that than Hummels. But the fact is that there's a profile that most people have identified that we need, and it seems like that we're not going for that, which is, for me, that's the disappointing thing. Not about
but you're basing it on a quick look at Fotmov,
exactly.
Though.
Yeah, and I think Khan's point is that obviously, that these people's analysis of who this player is and how he plays is based on a specific context, right? And as Marcelo, I think, exemplifies from profile, and be slightly better than, right? Some of the skills that were de-emphasized in a different system.
Yeah,
are going to be
this boy
emphasized
comes,
here, right?
which it seems like it's very likely, because he even came to Istanbul to check out the facilities and stuff like that. I mean, I hope that he's the new Marcelo, and because see if this guy comes out and walks out and suddenly he's a very good ball playing centre back for us. He's already got the height. He's amazing at the aerial duels. Doesn't get dribbled past. If he comes and does all these things,
remember that was something you said, right? Happy. Like about Hummels, that he got dribbled past a lot. Like, that's something you were worried about. So, like, you kind of have to, like, you win some, you lose some, right? You want an elite ball playing central defender, then okay, but maybe you get that he gets dribbled past more, right? Like,
you guys know the meme of, like, oh, we have that at home, so, like, you ask your mom, like, oh, I want McDonald's, I want a burger from McDonald's. Like, oh, we have, we can get a burger at home. We have a ball playing defender at home.
We do.
His name is Senor Montero. Exactly. And just really quickly, because I don't know if we'll get a big chance to do this, but in our friendly that we just played, you guys know my bias. You know what I was hoping for. And so I'm going to say this, and you're all going to apply several pinches of salt, I'm sure, but grains of salt. But Montero, Aydin Hasic, and Onana are 3 guys that stood out for me as just worthy of another look. And I hope Giovanni Van Bronckhorst agrees with me. He might. I've noticed them appearing more on social media. I do hope that Montero sticks around, honestly. And as far as the other guys go, as a rebuff against folks who say like, oh, we know you want these guys to do well. Surely they weren't as good as you say. I will say I also wanted, for example, like Rashica to have a good game. He was trash in our friendly. He was not good, and I'll admit that openly. Same thing for Oxlade-Chamberlain. I would love if he'd had a fantastic game so that we could like have a podium to sell him based on. He did not play very well. But so I do think I'm objectively saying that Onana, Montero, and Hasic, I hope they play again on Saturday. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, to what you've said, Sinan, it looks promising considering those three guys you've mentioned that seemingly are going to the camp in Slovenia, whereas Oxlade-Chamberlain and Daniel Amati aren't. So that to me suggests that Van Bronckhorst has said, look, no, these two guys, I've got no use for them. The rest of them, let's have a look. It seems like that seems to be the case, considering they're being taken to Slovenia. Obviously, Masuaku, Abu, Colley, they've just came, so maybe he wants to take a bit more of an extended look at them as well, because they just started training today.
Yeah. And Tayyip did too, which is weird. I noticed he just showed up for the first time with Abu. I was worried that he wasn't on the the squad list in our friendly, but it seems like he maybe because of his injury, they were kind of letting him start to train more casually, to begin.
Keep in mind he just extended as well, so I don't think you need to be too worried about.
Good. I hope not. Yeah, there were a couple names like him, Amir, Hadziometovich, I forgot the other guy, but there's some folks missing. Oh, Bakhtia, right? He was missing from the list. But it seems like they're like still training with the team and they're not being like delisted from the training camp. So, I guess they're just like, I actually think what might have been happening too was, because he switched the first half and the second half, he did two separate units. And a lot of them were littered with players who were kind of on the periphery, guys who you doubt, will stick with the team long term. And so I feel like maybe he was, playing them with an eye towards seeing, do we want to definitely let go of these guys without, any questions, or maybe take an extended look at some of them. And so I hope that's the case, because I think a few guys probably merited an extended look. Demir Ege was also like pretty good in the second half.
At the end of the day, they're just friends. Like these are literally.
Of course, it was Umrani in the Nevzat.
These are literally fitness games. Like if we lose these 5-0, it means nothing. No,
and I mean we actually held 0-0, and I will say that the unit that played in the second half, I got the distinct feeling that if they'd played like a normal match, 70 minutes and then got subbed out or whatever,
we had a massive chance right at the end, with that ball.
Yeah, no, they were building,
and then Muleka lobbed it wide or over.
They were building confidence. They were growing into the match. Like that second unit looked ready to do some damage. Even Muleka was kind of like starting to take shots, before the game. When the game ended, I was like, oh, is that it? Like we were just getting going. But anyway,
getting late here. See, now let's move to Ciro Immobile.
I know we gotta wrap this up. Wrap it up.
No. Let's move to the last big rumor that mainly came today. Sorry to cut you off there, Sinan, but I'm getting really tired.
It's merited. It's merited.
And I think most of our live viewers have already gone to bed already as well. So let's just close it off on Ciro Immobile. That's the big rumor that came today. Sorry, I had to tell my kid to shut up. So Ciro Immobile. Obviously, 4-time top scorer in Serie A. Last time was 2 years ago. Scored 30 odd goals then, but the last 2 seasons he's definitely had a decline in performance and production. He's had some injury issues. He had a car crash as well, I think, last year. So last season 12 goals, 1 assist. This season in the league 7 goals, of which 4 penalties. And I think overall he had 4 goals in the Champions League as well. So I think he had 11 goals and like 6 or 7 assists this season. So, this season, very similar stats to Cenk. Not very impressive. It's a player with a great career. I think he's turning 34 this month.
In a couple days.
Yeah.
Few days.
So 34 years old.
No, he's turned 34 in February. He's already 34.
No, late July, no? At least
it says on Says on Fortnum, 20th of February 1990.
Well,
It's funny. Wikipedia it said like late July, and whatever. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter,
Either way,
yeah.
he's 34 by the time he joins.
yeah, he's 30. He'll be 30. He's 34 years old. I know Cattell isn't the biggest proponent, but let's start with you, Sinan. What are your feelings about potential move for Ciro Immobile?
He's one of those guys who I would probably be convincing myself to get behind more than, some of the other names mentioned. I'd prefer Haller. He's a little younger, a little more on the upside. But his talent is undeniable. I think his stats, right? Like I was kind of giving you a little pushback in the group chat earlier, Con, when I was saying like, how many times was he subbed off? How many times was he subbed in? And, the answers didn't really defend him per se, although I think, he was coming off earlier and, a lot of goals are typically scored at the end of matches and stuff. So, I mean, you could make the argument that if he was like emphasized the way he had been when he was younger, maybe he would have, added 5 more goals to the tally or something, if he'd been given trust implicitly, I guess, more, but he's also 34. And so you understand why a club wouldn't do that, why they would be maybe, ushering in the next striker for the, who'd be playing for them this season or next season. Like I personally, I believe like there could definitely be a scenario where, come February of next year, we're all like, holy crap, Immobile has like 14 goals and, like this is fantastic. I had no idea, that this was coming, but, there's definitely a safer transfer out there. I'll grant Kartal that, who I'm sure has other words on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he was coming off of a 32 goal season, I don't think Kartal would mind at all.
No, yeah.
But the fact that he's coming off of an 11 goal season and
7 in the league.
7 in the league,
Okay,
of which 4 penalties.
Yeah, and another stat as well, 2 of them are off rebounds from the goalie. So, like, empty nets, essentially. Obviously, that still shows
They
great
were off
goal
what,
scoring
sorry?
instinct.
They were off?
So, basically, rebounds from the goalie.
Okay,
so
but that,
they keep on doing that safe. That shows good instinct.
That's not a negative in my book, because that's
poaching.
That's the type of goals
Poaching,
you need someone to score those goals, and that also shows hunger and still the ability to
Drive.
exactly. So that's not a bad thing at all. But
So 4-time Serie A top goal scorer of the year, Ciro Immobile. He's a phenomenal striker. Well, was a phenomenal striker. But for me, it's just a definite no-go for me, because the last 2 seasons, two seasons ago, the 22-23 season, he scored the 31 matches, started 27 of them, 5 assists, 12 goals. Not terrible by any means. It's probably about average. It's decent, but not great. But the guy was 33 years old, and that is down from the year before, the 21-22 season, where he scored 27 goals in 31 starts, and I believe was the top scorer in the league. But then this year, the downfall continued. He played 31 games, started 21 of them, scored 7 goals, and had 1 assist, and 4 of those 7 goals were penalties. So for me, that's a huge question mark as to how he'll be able to perform. We're talking about a 34-year-old that's on a downward spiral. Was a great centre forward, arguably was one of the best in the world for a while. Especially
at what he does, right? As a poacher, yeah.
You also need to keep in mind as well, like 33 appearances, 21 starts, but from those 21 starts, also subbed off 18 times. That also says
that's obviously a
something.
sign that he's not good enough.
Well, that implies, it's not sure, but that does imply not good enough, but that implies physical decline. It doesn't definitely mean that, because you can't say that for sure without watching the player, but that does, there's signs.
The numbers are enough to say, obviously that's a suggestion there's a physical decline, but there's a clear decline in performance and output, which is undeniable, and the numbers tell you that. So I think
still 4
at
goals.
34 years
still
old.
4 goals in 8 Champions League games though, and 3 of those were not penalties. So
I mean, that's impressive, but it's also a fairly small sample size.
it is, but it also shows. Like I think it also shows that he you know, like his poor league record. Like it's, you know, there's still that. There's that Champions League record, 4 goals in 8 games. At this,
But
I was actually
34
looking.
years old.
I was actually looking to try and download those games to try and watch them, but the Pirate Bay was down.
You're very corrected, Cad, man. I don't think I can do that. Watch games that I know the results of, just to see how the player performed. But I think at 34 years old, I don't think that's it's a risk that we should be taking, signing Immobile, because how many 34-year-olds after they've been on that peak, they've been so good for so long, and then they start falling off that cliff?
I'll tell you what.
At 34 years old, who's been able to go back up in the resurgence and get back to their old goal scoring ways and start performing at that top level again? I don't think there's many examples in history.
What if we keep Semi and bring in this Kevin Carlos guy or whatever he is? You know, the 22 or 23-year-old kid. Don't you feel like having a guy like Ciro Immobile who could, you know, he'd be like a super sub maybe, but like having him in Hawk, having him kind of coaching our young strikers, having his influence on maybe Semi Killage, so I don't you think there'd be some value maybe again, right? Maybe not as striker one, or having him as like kind of a striker one, but knowing that you have guys who you kind of hope would sort of take over.
I think that works if he's on a low wage, but if you were paying this guy $3.5-4 million a year,
I don't think
and there's
talk of him being paid $7 million. So
you can also hire a really good former striker as a coach. Then you know, like obviously he's gone to Man United now, but Ruud van Nistelrooy, for example, you could have included him in the coaching staff, you know, or you could have tried a little harder for Roy Mackay.
He already has big toes.
I mean, I don't think that's an argument to sign someone like that. It's you know, like obviously if he would happen to come, that is a potential upside, but
that's all it is. And I guess so. What I mean to say is that like part of me hopes we'll bring in like a Kevin Carlos or obviously like if we keep Semi that he plays a lot regardless, right? And so in a way, I think people's attention is focused on, we need striker one, we need like this guy who's going to score 20-25 goals a season, and like we might, or if we're not selling Semi, I'm sure like Cartel, you especially, right? Like who, you know, you don't really want to see him on the wing. You'd probably want to see Semi starting up top much of the season, right?
If Semi's staying, he should be the starting striker, or make a space for him on the wing. All I'm really bothered about is if he's staying, he needs to start. But I do think probably a sale would be beneficial for both parties, to be honest. So that's what I'm kind of hoping happens. If the money's right, obviously, if the right offer doesn't come, he has to stay regardless.
Yeah, I think if you can bring in Immobile on like $2 million a year or something, and he's not a guaranteed starter, and you're mainly bringing him in for the experience and all that, then there's an argument to be made.
It's not going to happen.
$4.5 million a year or $3.5 million a year, like, you know, that's ridiculous for.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like. Me and you don't want him. Sinan seems to be a wee bit on the fence, but not too keen either.
I'm not. I'm more just like constructing the argument for, you know, like to legitimize it. Again, like I'd prefer Haller.
This is for me. This is my opinion based on absolutely not watching him at all. Like if I've already asked a friend of mine who watches Serie A religiously. Like if he comes back to me and says no, he still got it. He just had a poor season or whatever because of this and that reason, like my opinion can flip, you know, like because my opinion is based on very little. It's based purely on what I see statistically, and like I've said before, like you need to watch players to form a proper opinion. So my opinion right now is right now it's negative, but it can be swayed if somebody tells me that I trust that, look, no, this guy still has it. Like, then it can change. But as of right now, like from what I see purely on the statistics and on the, you know, the writing on the wall in terms of playing time, in terms of getting subbed off, in terms of only having 7 league goals and 4 of those being penalties. Purely based on that, I am not pro this transfer because he's already 34 years old, because of the high costs involved. But like I said, look, if somebody I trust tells me no, look, I think he still has.
He's actually got it.
He's still
got it.
Yeah, I think for me, guys, the main thing is like at that age, see if Immobile was 30 years old and he had a couple of rough years, you think, oh, he's young enough to kind of get back on top of that hill, you know? He's young enough to make that resurgence.
He's 34.
It's like Gomez came after having 2 injury-plagued years and had that resurgence with us. That's why I think Haller could work out. I wouldn't say I'm 100% pro Haller, but I'd be happy with Haller because he's still 30 years of age and he's young enough to get back to his top level. But how many players have we seen have that decline at 34 and then get back to the top? I don't think there's any examples, really.
There will be examples, but you know.
I was going to say, it's worth noting that the trend is moving in a direction where you're very likely to see that happening more and more, right? Like in coming years, right, as players play longer. But you're right, the Cartel. And what is it worth gambling that this is going to be the first ball to drop or whatever?
They might say Edin Dzeko because he only scored like 7 goals in his last Serie A campaign, but at the same time, Edin Dzeko was fundamental to Inter Milan's run to that Champions League final.
Yeah, and also
he was starting in the final. And they're different players as well. Yeah. Dzeko is like a proper pivot striker. He's known for his hold-up play and bringing his teammates into the game, whereas Immobile's a poacher. His bread and butter's his goal scoring ability.
And Dzeko as well was deliberately brought to Inter in that role of almost a super sub. You know, like he wasn't brought to Inter with the idea of he's our number 1. Like he was number 2, and he did a great job. He had a great number 2 season. You know, that's not the same thing. And you know, I think with Immobile, like if he would have been number 2 and he would have had these numbers, then I think that's a different story. But because of the fact that he was still the starting striker for, you know, the majority of games. But I do have to point out, like, I looked at his injury history and he had a lot of hamstring issues the last 2 seasons. So that may also be part of the reason why his last 2 seasons haven't been so good, because he wasn't maybe 100% fit all. You know?
But hamstring injuries are known to recur quite a lot, so that's another issue as well.
Ogun Materazzi says in the comments, by the way,
that
he really hopes that.
Want me to read it?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Ogun Materazzi said, "I just hope that Semi gets that striker spot. Don't want him on the wing because of an old striker who already proved himself. We have such a gem we need to use." Yeah. Now, debatable as far as whether he's a winger or a striker, but definitely he needs to play. He needs to play. That's if he's staying, he has to play. Yeah. And that has to be kind of a priority, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. He needs to play. That's the most important part. Whether that's as a winger or as a striker, I don't really care that much. I think as long as the players that play in the other positions, so Rafa, and then whoever comes in as a winger, and whoever then comes in as the second winger or as the striker, I think those need to be top caliber players. If you have 3 really good players in those positions, and then you have Simi as the fourth, then I think, you know, then you're setting Simi up for success. And that's what we need to do. I think we need to set Simi up for success. We shouldn't have, like, I think Rashica is a fine player, but I don't think he's a needle mover. So I think you really need, you know, Rafa. I think you need a really good right winger, a really good left winger, and then you can have Simi as a striker. Or you need a really good right winger or a really good striker, and then have Simi as the left winger, you know? But I think if you have Simi as the left winger, then you probably need a Berghuis Di Maria type. And if you get Simi, I mean, I think you need a Berghuis Di Maria type regardless. But if you play Simi as the striker, then obviously you need a really good attacking left winger. I think, like the kid that we're being linked with right now. Was it
Sassuolo?
Lotrien or something from Sassuolo?
I can't remember his name.
Something.
The kid from Sassuolo. He looks very good. Good shot on him and very fast.
Good feet, quick. hard to deal with as a defender. Basically Nkudu with a brain.
Yeah, I mean that's what I said. I said before this guy was all mentioned that we should sign someone like that, and now we've been linked with him for a team like Sassuolo, who's like they've been relegated in Serie A. They're normally like mid-table to lower table. Yeah. The guy scored 6 goals, 6 assists in the last 2 years for them. That's 12 and 12 over the 2 years. Maybe a better team he scores more.
Yeah. I mean,
I think
almost certainly,
if
right?
he does 6 and 6 in Serie A, and if he can, I think someone that can get 6 and 6 in Serie A could easily get 10 and 10 in the Super League.
For sure.
And if he does that, that'd be phenomenal. Do you not think? If we could have a left wing like that,
yeah.
And then on the right side you've got